It's so
Yes.
wonderful to be here with you and Art for Palestine and Art for Mankind. Um, and I would love, yeah, for us to just open up this space and get started.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bree, for being here with me. I'm so excited that we get to host this space together. And just, I want to give a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us. We can't see your faces tonight, but we are feeling you. So
Yeah.
we want to invite you to just be present as much as you can with us, as much as feels good in the chat, sending your reactions. And of course, following our invitations as we journey through this beautiful night full of art and education. Oh, look at that. Someone's sending
I
little
saw some
hearts.
hearts.
See your little heart. Oh, and we can see your comments. So please comment, be active in the chat so we can feel
Yes.
you. And your energy will give us all in this community energy tonight for this gathering.
hmm Yeah, it's really helpful. There's there's so much going on in the world, and this topic of genocide is nothing new, but I really want to invite us all into, like, Palestine has given us a spine. Palestine has drawn a line in the sand for
Mm-hmm.
us as human beings to say that the war machine, war on this planet, is not what we want as human beings. And when you're ready to join that conversation, it's never too late. When should we have joined this conversation? 20 years ago, 75 years ago, 2000 years ago, we should have joined this conversation. And the next best time to join the conversation is now,
Ow.
is right now. And so you being here matters. You being a part of this conversation matters. And so every time we see your hearts or your hand claps, like, that's supporting us, who's supporting this conversation. Today, our gathering is centered around six families who represent 1.2 million people who right now are displaced in Rafah, displaced in Gaza, and being systematically killed in the name of imperialism, capitalism, and nationalism. And so we really want to open up this space to have a conversation with you. This is a very tender conversation. This is a very sacred conversation. And so I want to take a moment, if we're ready, Raven, I would love to, I call it prayer, but one of my dear friend tours, Cassandra Faye Floyd, calls it co-inspiring. So I'm going to open us up with a co-inspiring, a conspiracy together. um, a prayer, an invocation, an opportunity for us to come into our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever your spirituality or not spirituality, religion or not religion, invite us to just close our eyes for a moment and take a nice deep breath into our belly and just get in touch with this breath. Feel the air coming in and out of your nose, in and out of your mouth, into your body. And I invite us to call upon that, this life, this breath, whatever it is, this thing that lives us, that lives every single being on this planet, that is the equalizing force of every being, no matter what color of your skin, how much money you have or don't have, wherever you were born on this planet. We are all in this co-inspiring, inspirare, to breathe together. We are inspired, breathing spirit in our lungs together in this moment. And I just want us to call upon that life, whatever you call it, God, Allah, Yahweh, Mother, Mystery, Great Creator, whatever you call this breath, that is a mystery that we were not promised one moment more. None of us survived this thing called life, and there is so much needless suffering happening on the planet right now at the hands of humans who've been traumatized into believing that greed is the only thing that's going to get them to the next point. I call upon this life force, this great mystery, this breath that we share to guide us through these times of the poly crisis, the ecocides, the genocides, the slow suicide of addiction, the state-sanctioned homicides, to help us understand our role in this revolution, in the turning, the great turning that is upon us. I call upon all of our indigenous roots from around the world, all of our ancestors who knew how to dance with the sun, moon, and stars, our ancestors who knew the preciousness of the earth, of the fire, of the water, and of the air. I call upon the directions and the elements to guide us now and always. I call upon the north, the earth that we all stand on, this gravity that holds us unconditionally, the animals, the plants, the microbiome, our ancestors of this earth, the creepy crawlers, the high flyers, the deep swimmers. I call upon this precious Mother Earth to hold us all, to give us the strength to come together in sovereignty. That we are sovereign, we are free, we declare it so and so it is. And in solidarity, we need our circles. Thank you for being in this circle with us right now. Thank you for helping to build the human mycelium that is going to help make the change on this planet. Thank you. I call upon the South and the fire, this passion that lives in my breath, this passion that lives in my belly, our purpose, the vision, holding the light to the vision of the more beautiful world our hearts, our souls know is possible. Like the great light that we are, the fire that we live in, may we be like the GPS, yes, holding our desired destination and getting into relationship with our current location. This community circle is here to hold both of those, a deep relationship with our current location, specifically as it relates to Palestine. This beautiful land and these beautiful people who are being tortured and genocided at the hands of traumatized individuals who are justifying their trauma, hijacking their trauma, and utilizing it to genocide another. May we hold light to these brutal things. Understanding that every human is walking around truly believing they're doing the best that they can. How do we bring light to these places of darkness? May we become this fire with and for each other. Thank you. To the west, to the waters that stream down my face, to the waters that we are. Mini Wachoni, water is life. Con ella todo, sin ella nada. With her, everything. Without her, nothing. I call upon you, great sacred waters of our blue planet that unites us all, the water that is our body. I pray for water for my family in Gaza. Clean waters for them to drink and water to help them heal their wounds. The water that I watched a father feed his son as his foot was amputated with no medication, with no anesthesia. I pray for the waters that stream throughout our planet. I pray for the waters that connect us all. Congo, Sudan, Ethiopia, Tigray, West Papua, New Guinea, Puerto Rico, Hawaii. We hear you. Free us, Turtle Island. Free us all from the capitalist, consumerist war machine. May the waters wash us clean. May we as humanity come into rapport that we're just water babies. All of us are just water babies. Thank you. To the east, to the air that we breathe, I call upon our ancestors, our ancient ancestors, the ones before colonization, the ones before empire, all of our ancestors who knew how to dance with the sun, moon, and stars, who knew how to connect with the earth. I call upon the ancestors, the landcestors of the land that I stand on. I'm on unceded Tongva Gabrielino land that was stolen from these peoples. I call upon the lands of all of us that we're upon. If you know the name of the lands that you're on, I ask you to call that in right now. We have Munse Lenape land, Catawba land represented here, Yanawana land, Uhaviatam land. We have Esalen land. We have Huichol land represented here. Wherever land that you're on, if you know what it is, please put it in the chat. And to our ancestors whose land was taken from them in the name of someone else who believed that they had their right. We all know this pain of colonization, of being oppressed by colonization. And for those of you who are here, you feel that, you know that these are our family members. It's not some people long ago and far away. These are our family that are being genocided right now. And that's why we're here. In this line, we call upon our descendants, the children that have been birthed through us, and the children that we get to interact with in our lives, and everyone we touch with our words, our energy, and our actions. All of our descendants, everyone that we touch with our life, 7 times 7 generations into the future. We do this for ourselves. We do this for Palestine, and we do this for you. the future ones to come. May you look back at a time and remember us who stood up no matter what the outcome is. We believe in love. We breathe in life together. Inviting you to take in a deep breath as we say thank you to the east, the direction of air. As we open up this space with gratitude for this precious life. I come to pray for Palestine because life is so beautiful. And these people deserve to live. These people deserve to live. In the name of beauty, in the name of love, in the name of oneness, that all beings are one being. We are one. In that sacred remembering, in our bodies, on this planet, we are one. Children of this planet. May we learn these ways. May we return to our rooting in with this planet, our umbilical cord connection to this earth, our indigenous ways. To be indigenous means I belong to the land. She cannot belong to me. I will be gone way, way longer, way sooner than she will be. I cannot own her. I cannot own this land. But I belong to her. And for this and so much more, we say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We open up this time with gratitude, humility, and this co-inspiring. For everyone here live, everyone catching this on the replay, everyone who's donating, everyone who's contributed art, to everyone with Art for Mankind who's helped put this on, all of our presenters today, our musicians, comedians, artists, historians. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for this community. In times of loneliness, we need solidarity to come together. So thank you for standing forward, for standing strong and standing in the tenderness of your infinite, infinite heart. For this and so much more, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen, Amin, Aho, Ashe, Inshallah, Hosha. And so it is. Blessed, blessed be. Let's just take a few deep breaths together.
Inviting you to place a hand on your body wherever you're needing and feeling it right now. Letting whatever emotion is running through you, like electricity, like water, just be there. It's all welcome here. This is a safe space to feel everything. Okay, just remember that, friends, as we go through this journey tonight. And thank you, Bree, for your vulnerable heart, your beautiful prayer, and your demonstration of what liberation looks like. Everyone, tonight we get to liberate ourselves from our numbness. We get to liberate ourselves from apathy. We get to liberate ourselves from complacency. We get to liberate ourselves from the shackles of privilege and greed. And we get to be messy, tender, beautiful, feeling human family together. If you're into that, can you type family in the chat? I want to feel who's here for the family experience tonight, because I know I certainly am. Yeah. And as so many of you are popping on, we're having our artists joining in the panelist back end here, guys. I'm so excited for you to meet and feel everyone. And throughout the night, artforpalestinecampaign.com is going to be your home base to take action. Yeah. So when you're feeling moved and you want to take action, go spend the equivalent of a Starbucks coffee on our donate page. Go to the shop page and find a piece of art that moves you and buy it for a friend for a gift. Everything that you do tonight, everything that you give will go directly to the 6 families that you're going to meet via our beautiful EVAC campaign manager, Alyssa, this evening. And of course, with all this dark, heavy stuff, we're going to be bringing in the light of joy. We're going to be bringing in play. We're going to be bringing in humor. And we're going to be transmuting a lot of this deep history and grief through storytelling and, of course, through art, which is the whole basis of Art for Palestine and Art for Mankind. So let's see who's here for family. Oh, yeah, all of you guys. Ella, Veronica, Mary, Jahan, Michaela, Allison, Maria, love you guys so much. Family, first up, we have an amazing guest by the name of Lynn. Lynn Male. Oh, my goodness. She is an up-and-coming star in the comedy world, a Syrian-American TV writer and stand-up comedian, and her last name means salty. Now, I love this. I know that we need more salt. right? We need a little bit more salt in this liberation movement. And to be able to bring that through, Lynn has done that through her career. She has performed, she's written for Act Your Age on Netflix. Her work has been on The Onion, Reductress, McSweeney's. She's performed on Netflix Is a Joke Fest, New York Comedy Festival, San Francisco Sketch Fest, Don't Tell Comedy, and a few times in Brad Pitt's old backyard, which I think is a super fun fact. She is also the co-creator and co-producer of Hilarious Habibis, which is the first ever Middle Eastern stand-up showcase at the famous Hollywood Improv. So please give a warm little clap emoji in the chat to Lynn, and we're going to welcome her to take us into her beautiful medicine tonight. Welcome, Lynn. So good to have you.
Hello. Thanks for having me. You were reading that intro, and I was like, who is she? I want to know her.
Yeah,
it was just me.
Yeah.
And Brianna, thank you for that beautiful prayer. I feel so silly doing my little jokes following that, but it was gorgeous. So thank you.
Pleasure. We need it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You want me to just go into a set?
Go into a set.
We are ready
cool,
for you, girl.
Cool. Okay. Just some silly jokes to get everyone happy. So I live in Los Angeles. Anyone on this call in LA? Okay, cool. So I went to a hipster diner in Los Feliz, Fred 62. Do you know it?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. Here's the big news. On the menu, it says the best falafel in LA, which I had to screenshot because come on.
That's a big, yeah.
That's a big claim.
I think the really exclamation point is what does it for me. But I'm an Arab, I'm Syrian, so I was like, I need to push back on this. So I asked the server, is this really the best falafel in Los Angeles? And the server goes, yeah, and I would know. I've had falafel in Philadelphia. What?
What's that comparison?
I'm pretty sure that means nothing at all.
What does that even mean at all?
The only thing I can imagine they're doing differently with falafel in Philadelphia is spelling it with a PH at the beginning. Okay, we've got spellers on the Zoom. I love to see it. I want to shout out summer real quick, summertime. We've got summer lovers in the house, I'm guessing. Not a lot of stand-up comedians agree with us, but I personally prefer doing stand-up in the summer because I feel like my jokes about being a Middle Eastern woman land better when I'm tan. I identify as brown. A lot of people see me as white, which is understandable. When my parents moved to this country, they wanted me and my brother to fit in. So they gave us nice, normal American names, which is why my name is Lynn, and then my brother's name is Uncle Sam. My grandfather was a calligrapher in Syria. He did a lot of signage for the University of Damascus. And I decided that I wanted to get some of his work tattooed. So I asked my dad to send me some, but I couldn't say why, because obviously when you're a Muslim woman getting a tattoo is like, no, not going to happen. And my dad sends me back this, which is literally like the most beautiful calligraphy I've ever seen. And I was like, that's it. So I got it tattooed on my body, but I don't speak Arabic. So I called up my dad and I go, real quick, what does this mean? And he goes, oh, administrative office.
Oh. Wait, where did you get it tattooed though?
Like here-ish.
Perfect.
Yeah. No, you cannot see the tattoo. Absolutely not. Not on this Zoom. Not this Muslim girl. My mom would never. I figure it's more original than peace or love, though. You know?
Wow. I can't even, and that's on your hip. It's perfect.
Wild ride. Yeah. In high school, my parents, they got me and my brother a German foreign exchange student. I've been told I say that like they got us a puppy. He was a human. His name was Matthias. I feel like my brother was such a loser. My parents were like, here, we ordered you a friend. But looking back, I feel so bad for Matthias because imagine traveling all the way around the world for the authentic American experience and ending up at my parents' house in New Jersey, which is Little Arabia. Matthias had to write a report about his experience. He sent it to his teacher and he sent it to our family, and I have it right here, and I'd love to read you a little excerpt If I can get everyone's consent, yes, I love consent. I'm going to
Yes.
put on my glasses for this. Okay, so Matthias writes, traditional American fathers, this is what all traditional American fathers do. Traditional American fathers spend all day perfecting their yogurt. They don't watch sports like you'd think they would. No, they watch yogurt incubate. Traditional American mothers left everyone and everything they ever loved behind so their children could have a better life. So now they whittle away the lonely time playing online solitaire. It's both sad and beautiful. Matthias was kind of a poet. Traditional American teenage boys are losers and have no friends. Their only friends are me, Matthias, the German foreign exchange student. And then finally he writes, teenage girls in America are named Lynn and they are gorgeous and funny, no notes. That's what he wrote. So, I mean, we can't really argue with it. I want to make it very clear that I'm nearsighted and do not need these glasses, and I'm very dizzy right now. Okay, I'll do one more and then I'll hit the road. The last time I was back home, I went shopping with my mom and I picked out this shirt that had a zip up back. And I go, Mom, can you help me with it? And she goes, well, who's going to help you with it when I'm not around? Literally amazing how quickly this bitch can make anything about her eventual death. I was like, Mom, obviously my boyfriend's going to help me with it. And she goes, well, lucky him. I love that in my Muslim mom's mind, the most erotic thing a man could do to me is put my clothes back on.
Bless her.
And I think I think that may be my cute little 5-minute mark. So I don't know if you have any follow-up questions. This isn't how a normal stand-up show goes.
You do have 10 full minutes, but I just want to name like you doing comedy on Zoom. Like this is a whole different thing, but I love it. I feel like we're getting a personal show because it's
Really?
just us, and I'm like trying to withhold my laughter so it doesn't all come out. But like, thank you for bringing it on this platform. And yeah, what I'm curious, like, how are you seeing that comedy is supporting people in these times of obvious genocide? Genocides have been happening on the planet for a long time, specifically initiated by the United States of America. I like to call it the United Snapes of America. How do you see that comedy is supporting people right now?
I mean, it's been pretty wild. We had our show for the New York Comedy Festival in New York, I want to say November 6th, which was a really hilarious Habibis, it was kind of a scary time to be publicly Arab in America. But the turnout was the biggest turnout we've ever seen. I think people were just trying to support our people right now in any way they can. But I will say it's twofold. On the one hand, there's been a lot of really great fundraising shows like this. It's really bringing the community together. But also, yeah, it has been raising a lot of questions for me personally, which is like, how safe is it to be publicly Arab in the world? And, you know, is this a risk that I'm running? And there's just been some fear in that regard. But I feel very supported here.
Good.
I'm so glad to hear that, Lynn. And thank you for sharing what you mentioned about, you know, being an Arab woman making jokes in the summertime. It really resonated with myself. I'm a mixed baby. My dad's from Lebanon. His mom is from Haifa, Palestine. And so I'm definitely like more brown in the summer and feel like that cultural part of me shows. And it definitely is it's a beautiful challenge to walk in the world with, you know, mixed ethnicity and with so much cultural awareness. So thank you for bringing your cultural sensitivity into the world of humor. Wishing you so much success on your upcoming shows. And you have a whole bunch of new fans in our family today. So
so fun.
Yes.
I'm fans of you all too.
You rule, dude, in the comments. We love you. We're so excited to have you with us for the evening. And we're excited as well to welcome our next educator, Alyssa. Maybe Bree, you can just give a little context to what Alyssa's going to be sharing with us today.
Yeah, we're supporting. Thank you again, Lynn. Excited to continue to connect with you. Lynn also included their Instagram, so make sure to follow Lynn online. and support all of our peoples here. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here. Alyssa's going to be introducing our 6 families that are donations tonight, and as long as it takes to get them out of Rafah, that we're going to be supporting through Art for Mankind. And these 6 families were chosen and vetted. Alyssa has been doing this work for quite some time. She's worked directly with an organization called SafeBow doing cash aid and transitioned to case managing evacuations, and has evacuated 37 people. Many children who are malnourished and needed medical assistance, as well as vulnerable elderly folk. She moved to Lemon Tree Collective and has worked with Watermelon as well. She's a political scientist in Boston and runs Unwhite, which is a for-profit organization focused on helping heavily gentrified communities. And so, Alyssa, I'm just grateful to have your voice here with your background and your expertise and your perspective on mutual aid and what we can actually do. So the biggest question I've gotten asked in all of my social justice work, as a white presenting woman from Southern California who has not seen on the front lines, like the actual violence, like what can we do to actually stop it? Like, how can I actually intervene? And so just really grateful to you for helping us bridge this conversation with our money, our energy, our prayers, our actions. What can we do here for those who are there to get the pieces moving and create some sort of support in any way? So Alyssa, we're going to turn it over to you, and we'll be here to support and ask any questions. And just know that we are so grateful for you and the slideshow, and sending love and money and care to these 6 families and all of our families in Gaza and beyond. So without further ado, Alyssa, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for that intro, Bree. I really appreciate it. I do want to only correct that clinical scientist, not political, for fear of getting any sort of political question that I then won't be able to answer. I sort of run and now hide lately and dig my head into the ground when I hear anything about US politics. So I wanted to clear that up right away. But thank you. Thank you so much for the intro, Raven. I love your energy, and thank you for bringing it to this telethon. It gives me life. And Bree, thank you for calling on the ancestors. We need them here. We need them here now. We need their guidance. We need their strength. We need their power. So thank you again. And everybody else, thank you so much for being here. I wish we could see all of your beautiful faces, but we can definitely feel your energy in the web crowd, if you will. So I'll be sharing a PowerPoint. I know that sounds
Ooh.
Well, I hope not to stir up any trauma from high school for anyone, but thought it might be the most palatable way to talk about some of the families that we're discussing and supporting today.
And see their faces.
And see their faces, absolutely. So here's the PowerPoint if it starts to share, and I will start this from the beginning. There we go. So the families that we're sponsoring are from all over Gaza. They've been forcibly displaced along with 2.2 million others to camps and corners of the beautiful strip that have been ripped void of all of their resources that are necessary for life. I thought this map was really important to show you folks that places around the Nusrat camp and areas around Rafah, of which Khan Yunis is really close to, are where everybody's been crammed into. And I want everybody to keep in mind that this is 2.2 million people crammed into these really, really small places. It's also really important to note as we discuss these families that, and especially as we discuss their GoFundMe appeals and their fundraising goals, that these resilient individuals have withdrawn the bulk of their collected funds to simply sustain life in Gaza while the borders have been closed to evacuation since the occupier, Israel's violent incursion on May 6th. So the amounts that you see in these individuals in these families' GoFundMes are not reflective of the funds that are actually available to them today. The first family we're going to talk about, and when there are slides highlighting individuals, these folks are the spokespeople, the head of households, the protectors of their families, and so they all get a slide of their own. So the first person we're going to talk about is Ahmed Youssef. He's a 24-year-old computer engineer from Gaza. His family, his beautiful family, the Youssefs, they are 23 family members displaced, living in tents for over 9 months. Here's a photo of the tents that they're living in the current sweltering heat of summer, and the same tents that have gotten them through the really harsh and wet winters. They've lost their homes, their businesses, and any access to funds or savings or medication that they've had. Of the 23 members, 11 of them are children. And look at these beautiful faces. The number of times I broke down into sobs just looking at these gorgeous babies and thinking of the horrors that they're going through on a daily basis. Many of them are suffering from various stages of malnutrition. The costs of food are wildly inflated. Even something like a kilo of salt can cost up to what we would say is 10 to 20 US dollars if they can even find them. And Ahmed's parents also suffer from hypertension and diabetes, to which they have no access to medication or sufficient treatment for. The Yusuf's GoFundMe appeal is to fundraise 20,000 euros to assist with the costs of evacuations when they become available. And we'll touch a little bit more on that later. But if folks are not currently aware, the Rafah border crossing, which was the primary one that was used for evacuations throughout the start of this genocide, has been closed since the incursion on May 6th. So there are no evacuations happening right now. So once those borders open, and we are hoping that they do, these funds will go towards the cost of evacuations. But until then, medical care, supplies, and anything else to sustain life. The second family, the head of household, the primary contact for this family is Rahaf Kulab. I'll read a quote here that summarizes who Rahaf is. She's a beautiful individual. I was a pharmacy student and guitarist who loved playing music, watching movies, and singing with my friends. We were a happy family, and our days were full of love and warmth, but now we've lost everything. My mother suffers from primary progressive MS, multiple sclerosis. My sweet nephew, Kenan, has lost his childhood and his health, and all I want is the chance for us to evacuate and rebuild our life. Please, your donation of any amount means the world and will make a huge difference. My apologies, I put the wrong last name here. It should say the Collabs there. It says the Ziads. The family is a family of 9, including a 2-year-old toddler, Kinan. The mother, Shireen, suffers from primary progressive multiple sclerosis. For those of you who don't know, MS is a devastating neurological disease. I actually have MS myself, so this case is very near and dear to my heart. I have relapsing remitting MS, so much less aggressive. Hearing that Shireen has no access to any sort of disease-modifying therapies, no medications, no anti-inflammatories, is a terrifying thought. Primary progressive MS progresses very, very quickly, especially under heat, stress, and that's everything that this family is undergoing right now. She is currently non-ambulatory, bedridden, covered in sores, while this awful disease runs rampant through her body. Their GoFundMe appeal is for 54,000 euros to evacuate the entire family when feasible and support their medical expenses and needs while they're still stuck in the strip. And all that it means is trying to find shelter and medication and food where possible. The initial priority for their evacuations would be given to evacuating Rahaf's mother, Shireen, along with Rahaf and one of her sisters to be their primary caregivers. And the third family of the 6th is the Al-Shantis. And Omar is the primary person of contact for this family. He's a 24-year-old professional football, so soccer, for us Americans, player from Gaza. There are 20 plus family members, all displaced and living in tents presently. And here's some photos of the family just sort of surviving day to day and somehow still managing to smile. The resilience of these Palestinian folks never ceases to amaze me. But here they are cooking over makeshift stoves in their tents. There are 14 young children in this family, 2 of whom were just born, 2 of Omar's brothers, Abdullah and Muhammad. Those are the little ones on the top right and the bottom right of this screen. The mother, they were just born in May, and Omar's mother, Layla, is 66 and she suffers from various chronic illnesses and has no access to medication at this time. This family's GoFundMe appeal is $30,000 US dollars in order to evacuate the most vulnerable members of the family, so children and elderly. And that does not include, at this time, the adults. That would be an additional cost for evac. So I'll stop there. Those are the first three families for us.
Yeah. I just want to invite everyone to take a nice deep breath as we stay in our bodies and just feel what Alyssa just shared and remember these pictures and remember that it may not have been that far off for some of us whose families have had to escape, right? Had to escape a colonizing force. And I wrote the question in the chat, but what would you want the world to do if this were you and your family? How would you want the world to post? How would you want the world to respond if this were you and your family? So thank you, Alyssa, for humanizing. I think seeing names and pictures of people that you've been in contact with and feeling you speak about it humanizes this. So often it can be either written off as something that's going on over there, or it's so many people. It's so, how do we even begin? And I really appreciate you bringing some dignity and humanity to this conversation. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your work. And I look forward to hearing from you again after we get to hear from the Oud.
And I think, yeah, I want to just also like point out that it's so important that we remember that these are folks just like us, right? We are all sitting here behind our computers right now, working our regular everyday jobs. I mean, some of these folks they're computer engineers, they're children, they have businesses, they're store owners, they've worked in restaurants. Like these are people just like us. And the only difference between us and them is the land that we were born on. It could be any of us. These are newborn babies that are being born in the middle of an aggression, where just maybe a couple miles down the road, there are hospitals with newborn babies being born right now under the care of doctors and nurses, and these folks are not getting that. It's not even a luxury. It's simple care, it's human need, it's basic necessities that should be provided for them. And again, it's so important to remember that the only difference between us and them is the land we were born on. And that is all.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm excited to hear more from you in just a moment. And we're going to call on Clarissa. Raven, would you like to intro Clarissa, who's going to be joining us, our famous oud player? Ah, there he is.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you so much, Clarissa, for being here. Everyone, family, we're about to enter into the realm of music. And I want to invite us to let our shared prayer to be to connect with our humanity and to connect with our Palestinian families through Clarissa's musical offering. And I'm happy to share a little bit about them. They're an accomplished Palestinian oud musician. And if you guys haven't heard the oud before, you are in for a treat. This is one of the most beautiful stringed instruments. Clarissa is also a composer hailing from LA with a background in music and a specialization in ethnomusicology. And they have trained under esteemed Arab oudists such as Simon Shaheen, Charbel Rukhana, and Bassam Saba. They have been all over the world, blending the traditional sound of the oud with genres like R&B, pop, hip hop, and rap. If you guys like tribal fusion, ethnic fusion music, can you write fusion in the chat? I'm a fan of fusion music for sure. And their latest album, Hassan Sabi, showcases their versatility and creativity. And this is available for streaming everywhere now. So I know after this performance, we're all going to be like, oh my God, I need Clarissa everywhere. But just know that you're in the presence of greatness here. And we're so honored to have you, Clarissa. I'm going to just welcome you in to share your heart, your art, your beauty, and your passion for knowledge, you know, the knowledge that you have about Arab music and bringing, you know, this spirit in as a musician myself and a singer and someone who has Arab roots, but never really learned the language or how to integrate that into my own artistry. I'm so excited about how this cause has really introduced me to Palestinian artists like yourself who are teaching me about how beautifully we can blend our roots with our fruits and bring our ancestry and our love for culture into our gift today. So that's all from me. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for sharing your voice and time with us tonight.
Thank y'all for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so I'm going to be playing first off a ta'asim. And for those of you that are not familiar with the ta'asim, it's an important part of the tradition in Arab music. My volume is low. Let's pull this closer. How's that? Is that better?
That's better. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll try to speak a little bit louder.
Come be intimate with us, baby. Yes.
All right. So basically, I'm going to play a ta'asim. And for those of you that don't know what a ta'asim is, it's an instrumental improvisation. And you start in a maqam, or a scale that is kind of like home base. And you navigate through multiple maqamat, different scales, until you come back home. And it's kind of like how you tell a story. And so this is a big part of the tradition in Palestine and in a lot of places, a lot of Arab countries. So, yeah, I'm going to play for you now one, and then we're going to go into some songs maybe you'll recognize, and hope y'all enjoy. We good on time? Okay.
I want you to go forever, so, but
Sounds good. All right.
yeah, we've got another 10 minutes or so, and we want to have a little bit of a time for chat. So if you have another one that's a few minutes, we would love to hear you more. Thank you. It's truly,
Another one more, and then we're gonna do some questions, you said?
yeah,
Sounds good. Okay. All
thank
right.
you.
Of course. All right.
Yes. Yes, Clarissa, thank you for taking us on that journey. And I just want to invite everyone who is tuning in to just breathe all of that in, that Clarissa just gifted us with their time and their energy and this incredible gift and skill that you have honed from the land that your people are from. And yeah, I would love to hear with everything that's going on. How do you find that music and how do you find that art is supporting you and your community at this time?
Find that for me at least, it's one of the few outlets that I at least have to um, make myself feel better and um, you know try to move a lot of frustration um, and to feel connected, especially being in diaspora, I think. So yeah, I think that it's a really powerful thing. I think for my family, it's always been something that has been a tool to heal with music, and I think that I've learned that through them to use that as something to move through grief, to move through pain, to have joy. It's for so many things. So I think that um, that's just music is something that's part of so many of those events in life, and I think that
Mhm.
how you yeah how at least how I use it in this moment is really like as that like you know as that way to move a lot of my pain and frustration and anger and try to also create art that pushes forward a like you know anti-colonial you know anti-imperial message and
Mhm.
try to always have like my art be you know retaining that. So I think that that's important and people think artists have that role as well because your art can be co-opted otherwise. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a long-winded answer, but yeah, it's important. It's definitely important.
Great to hear.
And where can we find your music? What do you want us to be listening to right now? How can we receive more of your medicine?
Great question.
Um, yeah, you can find my music is on all streaming platforms. So wherever you like to listen to music, you can check out my website has a link to also direct links to my music as well. You can find it and like link you to other spots depending on where you live, like what platform you use.
Amazing.
Yeah, but like all those spots you can find it.
Amazing. We'll all head to your website. We'll all head to your social media. Guys, go find something of Clarissa's and comment family on it. That's my invitation, just to let them know where you're coming from. And let's use that as our little code word to find each other on the socials. I love that. And thank you so much, Clarissa, for your music. I was up dancing, moving. I could not sit still. I was feeling my ancestors, getting it on while you were bringing that through. I will definitely be following you on Spotify and all the appropriate places. So wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And y'all just like think about all the children in Palestine who might be musicians, aspiring artists, like who have this dream, who've lost their arms, who won't be able to play the oud, who won't be able to like, right? Like this is what moves me as well as an artist and musician. And a reason why I came onto this campaign and decided to host is because I feel so passionate about the privilege of having these two things right here, these hands, and my feet. And I think about the amount of amputees, including, some of the children in the families that we're supporting who really need that encouragement to continue to pursue their artistry and to be able to continue to create their lives as they grow, and we help to rehabilitate them. So let that inspire you as we welcome back Alyssa to talk about our next 3 sponsor families, the families you can donate to right now for the price of a cup of coffee or just anything that you feel in your heart to give. The link is up and active. You can also share it with friends and family. Let's learn more about our Palestinian families. Welcome back, Alyssa.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Clarissa. My soul feels so much more at peace now after that. Thank you for sharing your talent. I want to start. I know that we're going over the last 3 families, but I did want to start. And is this sharing?
Not yet.
Not to be tech illiterate right in the middle of this. My apologies.
There it goes.
There we go. Okay. I
There
did want
was
to just
a really good question too that I just want to pin. It may be what you're answering. So someone asked, how did we find these families? How did we connect with them? How did we choose these specific families as well?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Really quickly, I wanted to just pull the collab slide back up. At a time when there are entire family names being wiped off of registries, the power of a name should not be understated. So I wanted to just bring this slide back up. I did correct the family name, and apologies again for misspelling it the first round. But I think it's so, so important that we know people's names, that we say their names, that we keep their names in mind. So I wanted to bring the collab slide back up. And again, this is the family whose mom suffers from primary progressive MS. And again, just bringing this up because I did misspell their name in the first slide, and say their names, right? Say everyone's name, keep their names alive. Their names are their legacy. Our names are our legacy. So I wanted to bring that up again. To answer your question, so and I will actually stop sharing briefly to answer that. So a lot of these families were brought up from various places and introduced to the Art for Mankind, Art for Palestine organizers from friends and colleagues and other peers. I can speak directly to how I came upon the Collab family, actually, and it was through, as I mentioned, I do have MS. I follow several MS bloggers, and I saw that there was a blogger posting about a family with a mother who has MS, and they're looking for funds for evacuation. This was just before the borders closed. And I immediately sort of jumped on that. I was working with the Lemon Tree Collective at the time, And I brought it to the founder of Elementary Collective and the rest of the group. So is this a family? Is this a case that we might be able to take on? And it's something that's really near and dear to me. So I brought a couple of other MS organizers together to help me get in touch with Rahaf. And in doing so, I was introduced to Ryan, who had been working with Rahaf for a while, and had been friends with her for a while before that. And so that's how I met that family. And that's actually the story of a lot of families in Gaza that we're all meeting. If you run into anybody that says we're helping to sponsor a family, if they're not already friends or family, we're meeting a lot of these folks through social media. And the power of social media really can't be understated at a time like this. And so I think that that's also super important to mention. So thank you for that question. I hope that was a sufficient answer. I will bring this PowerPoint back up. Maybe, perhaps.
Yay!
Is it there?
Success.
Okay,
Yes, you can
beautiful.
see. Yes.
So I will be going through the next three families, starting with the person of contact for the Al Ghuls, Muhammad. He's 24 years old. His family is a family of 12 with 7 adults and 5 children. And sticking with the notion that it's so important to humanize these folks. I mean, these are not just numbers, these are not just statistics, these are people. They are just like us. And I was chatting briefly with Muhammad and asking, like, hey, is there something that you want people to know? Is there an important message that you want us to give people? And it wasn't just Muhammad that gave me this answer, it was every single person, these families that said, I'm just a young person like any other in the world. And this is a direct quote from Muhammad, who has a dream and a life to enjoy, but here in Gaza, this is almost impossible. At 24 years old, he says, I've lived 4 wars, and this fifth might be the last for me if my life ends with it. The wars stole from us the best years of our life. And I think that that's really, really important to keep in mind. This person is 24 years old. By standards in the US, in our privileged areas in big cities, that's still a kid. That's a young child. We're figuring out life. We're all still partying, getting drunk on the weekends and not knowing what we want to do with our careers. And this person is taking care of their entire family in the midst of a genocide. Mohammed's family's appeal is $50,000 to support the eventual evac of 7 adults, 2 children under 5, and documents and passports for each of their family members. One thing to keep in mind is that a lot of these folks do not have a lot of the documentation that's needed to actually properly evacuate a war zone. Many of them left their homes with just the clothes on their backs and maybe a few necessities. And so they do need to have things like passports and ID documents remade. And in a place where infrastructure has been almost entirely decimated, there are very few resources available to have that done, and the resources that are available are exorbitantly inflated in price. A passport that might have once cost $50 can now cost upwards of 500. Both of Muhammad's parents have diabetes and hypertension. The children in the family are severely dehydrated and malnourished, as is the case with children in all of these families. And in the interim, while evacs are closed, they are seeking funds for food, shelter, and medication. The next family that we are sponsoring is the Badwans. Osama is the head of household for this family. He's the eldest son. His father very recently passed away. I can't imagine the grief of losing a parent who is doing all the caregiving and taking care of the whole family and organizing and making sure that you have shelter, and then losing that individual in the midst of this genocide. I know people have lost so many family members in the midst of this, and so many individuals have been martyred. But this young man has become the head of household of his 11 family members. They're presently in Nusrat. Their family is from northern Gaza. Their tent was stolen actually just this past week, and the family does not have the funds or resources to purchase a new one. As I previously mentioned, when you look at a lot of these families' GoFundMes, the funds that show that they've collected are not accurately reflective of what's available for them. The borders have been closed for 2 months now, and a lot of these funds have been withdrawn and transferred. Ooh. that my feedback or is that all done?
You're good now.
Okay. Um, a lot of these funds are no longer available or accessible, and they need additional funds and resources. So this family's tent was stolen. They're currently sheltering in a school that is not safe. As you all might know, schools are a heavy target for the IOF, schools and hospitals, because there's no respect for the sanctity of life in this genocide at all. And they're not safe in the school that they're sheltering in right now. And they definitely need the funds and the resources to get a new tent. The cost for those range anywhere from $500 to $1,000. They've been displaced, as I mentioned, 4 times, 6 adults and 5 children, ages 4 to 13, and their GoFundMe appeal is $50,000 to support the family while evacuations aren't feasible. The next family is the Sobes, and I want to preface this last bit of slides with a warning that there are some graphic images. This family has suffered a lot. They all have, but the head of household, as well as some of the children, have been the victim of airstrikes. They have been subject to amputation and other medical procedures. And so, if anyone is particularly sensitive to these kinds of photos, the next 5 minutes might be a good time to look away. Ahmad Sob is the head of the household for a family of 11, including his 7 children. He was recently injured with his daughter Allah in 2 airstrikes. He was evacuated to Egypt medically, and Allah was evacuated to Turkey. Both of them suffered injuries due to shrapnel to their arms. Ahmad narrowly avoided needing an amputation, but Allah sadly did lose her hand due to the severity of her shrapnel injuries. Since Ahmad was evacuated and so was his daughter, Ahmad's brother Yasser has taken responsibility for the family. He is now the head of household for the rest of Ahmad's children. They suffered or were victim to yet another airstrike. And Ahmad's son Amar was recently injured. The family hopes to medically evacuate him as well, but it's become nearly impossible to even facilitate medical evacuations. We'll talk a little bit more when I go over evacs about the difficulty of approving a medical evac. There's very little to even say because that is something that needs to be organized with NGOs and governments and approved by Israel, because usually it involves airlifting or having ambulances that have special allowance to cross borders. This last slide is particularly graphic. It shows Ahmad's arm post shrapnel injury, and his son Amar, who was recently injured, he suffered a head injury, and Allah on the far right post the airstrike with her injured and amputated arm. And their GoFundMe appeal is 65,000 Canadian dollars for evacs and medical support, especially now that the head of household is in a different country. He is in Egypt and the daughter is in Turkey. They are now also dealing with the needs in those specific countries and the finances needed to cover them. So I'll stop sharing there, but I do want this image to be burned in everyone's mind. These are children. These are babies. These are babies.
Alyssa, your bravery to do this work does not go unnoticed. Your strength of heart and grace to be someone who is living with a condition that you could recognize in another, and then to extend that compassion to as many families as you possibly can. You're an inspiration to me and to all of us. And I'm so touched. I know we all are. There's a lot of tears online right now. I'll put a little water droplet in the chat if you'd be crying, because this feeling of like, wow, these are real people. These are my cousins. These are brothers and sisters. These are living, breathing humans. It's so hard to communicate that through social media, and to be able to bring it into a space here where we're all focused and we want this information. Guys, this is so powerful. The fact that we're even presencing these people's faces and names in a sea of anonymity and being ignored and swiped past.
Yeah.
just thank you all for your presence right now. And if you're just joining us, welcome into a space of tenderness, of hope, of liberation. I'm Raven Royce. I'm here with Brianna Lynn, co-hosting Art for Palestine, and Alyssa, our campaign evacuations manager, has just shared with us about another group of the families that we're supporting through this campaign. So thank you for all for being here. We're so excited for the rest of this evening and to transition into even deeper learning and to get activated, to get empowered with some knowledge about mutual aid, about history, how to have some of these harder conversations. And I'm really excited to turn this over to you, Bree. For those of you who don't know, Bree has a nickname, Encyclopedia, and that deeply extends not just to her heart, but to her mind and to the way that she's helped me learn a lot about the history of Palestine, about conflict, about the poly crisis, and just a lot of social justice issues. And we're going to be joined by two amazing educators, Rand and Noor, who I'm really excited to get in the mix with, and mostly just to listen and learn. So for all of you here who are thinking like, I don't know much about what's going on, I don't know what mutual aid means, that's okay. We're all here to learn together and to be students of this work. Liberation is a lifelong journey, and thank you all for following the calling. So Bree, why don't you take us into this next segment? I'm so excited.
Yeah, thank you, Raven. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to introduce and communicate with these next two individuals because, first of all, fuck yeah, Gen Z. The way you're bringing it is a whole nother level. I started my social justice movement when I was 15. My first time in the streets was during the Iraq War. We're talking 1999 to 2003, and I felt really fucking alone from my peers. And I'm looking at Gen Z, and I was like, I should have been born then with these ones. I wanted an encampment at my university. I wanted to be on the streets with people my age. So like feeling you all organized, feeling you all with your passion and your care, deeply rooted in what is most sacred, which is life. And I've just been following both of y'all for a second and have just been deeply inspired as a human being and also as an academic and also someone who deeply connects with earth spirituality. The way you're bringing it is like our ancestors with this like fire and passion and care and like unapologetic. It's because I fucking love. Like this fight comes from a place of love. This fight is not for the aggression of vengeance. It's because life is so goddamn beautiful that I'm going to stand in this, and name what's happening to my people right now to those who aren't and are willing to listen. So both of you just have like this fierceness that I long for in my own community and in my own peer group. So thank you. Yalla Habibtis, I'm so grateful to introduce both of you. We're going to start with a little chat on mutual aid and Rand, just the voice that you have chosen to say yes to in this work. What I admire so much about you is you're hilarious. You're fucking hilarious. Your posts, the way you speak, you have a lightness and a depth at the same time. And it's exactly the energy of mutual aid. Of like, we are not here to call upon your pity. We are not here to call upon your vengeance. We are here to call upon, how we say it in California, northern Mexico, I like to call it like the cojones of your soul. And you have that, just like, I'm going to call you forward from that, which is like the depth of you. So please come forward, and anything else you would like to say to introduce yourself. And specifically, let's dive into the conversation. This can be a conversation on why mutual aid and not charity. Why are we framing this as a human project, not just the Palestine project? And what we can do to not only in action in the world, yes, donate, yes, show up, yes, post, but on the inside, the paradigm shift, the spiritual shift that gets to happen for humanity at this time, for us to reframe the way we relate to each other on the planet. So I'm calling you forward, Rand. Let's dive into some mutual aid.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction. How's my sound and video right now? It's all right?
Right,
Cool.
yeah.
got mountain service, so just keep me honest on that. Also,
Nice.
please keep me honest on time. Like literally, just be like, "Hey, Ryan, can you just please shut the hell up right now? Because we got to move things along. So just let me know."
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you to everybody who organized. Thank you for all the wonderful co-panelists and everybody on here today. My name is Brend. That's my real name. I'm not Jake. The handle kind of started like years ago before anyone cared what I had to say. And I started my content creating on TikTok. That's actually how Noor and I got to know each other because we were both kind of creating content around the same time, around Palestine, being Muslim, being queer, just these intersections and these conversations again, where like I know Noor and I have shared similar sentiments. Like for me, my whole life, no one has cared about what I had to say. And now that a bunch of people do, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Also, it's a big responsibility. So it wasn't something that I was like, I'm gonna be an influencer. Like I reject that word. The only time I've ever quote unquote made money off of being an influencer was I got free vibrators once. I got a free stay at a cabin once. And that was great. But you know, people don't hire Palestinians even before all of this. So, you know, it's not like my content was necessarily capitalistic in its nature anyway. So I've always rejected that. It was never like this is something I'm gonna do for money. Like and now that I've stepped into this position of quote unquote influence, I do feel that responsibility. I like to remind everybody that even with the content I make, it's like my own thoughts, but I don't believe there's such thing as original thought. I think that for me, the woo-woo part of me is just going to speak from this place. I never used to think this way about things, but I do truly believe the ancestors are speaking through me. I feel like it's just tapping into what everybody else is thinking and synthesizing it in a way that makes sense in my head. And I think it's beautiful that people can resonate with that. I hope every day my intention is to drive people to take more action, drive people to be more compassionate with their action. I'm a huge fan of compassion. Doesn't mean we have to like everybody, but we do have to love everybody. You don't have to work with everybody. You don't need an organizing group of 3,000 people. You just need 5 people, 5 to 10 people you can trust to make some shit pop off, just like what these folks are doing here. So, and everybody's got their role. Mutual aid is one facet of it. Yes, the way I like to think of it is I lived in New York City for like 4 years. It's kind of like the same way where you always want to keep cash on you. That way, if somebody's walking down the street and says, "Hey, can I get $1?" You can give them $1, right? So it's really, you got to think of it that way. It doesn't mean that giving this person $1 is going to end homelessness in New York City. It doesn't mean that it's going to take down the police. But what it means is that we are preparing ourselves for what we should have been preparing for this whole time, what folks have been preparing for. And that is to reject capitalism because it's going to reject us soon to the point where every single one of us will be absolutely at zero. I know a lot of us already there. Most of the people who are doing this work don't have a lot to give in the first place. Most people who donate don't have a lot to give in the first place. Every now and then I get $1,500 randomly, and that's awesome. If you have rich friends, please put them in their place. It's really important. And I think the thing with mutual aid is that because a lot of it is relationship building for me, that's the most important thing. I spent like 10 days in Cairo. I had 2 missions. One was to do mutual aid, and the other was to meet with folks. And if anybody wanted to share their story, I wanted to use my platform to amplify their story, not necessarily with the goal of getting money. That helps, right, to humanize people. However, for me, it was more so like what I'm trying to get serious about in my own role in this movement is the journalism of it all, the record keeping, being able to speak from my heart, being able to amplify the stories that are there. Again, thinking about my responsibility with my platform. And right now, for me, I do think the most important stories in the world right now are from Gaza. So that is why, that is the other reason why I went there. That's the reason I'm going back. Silly me, I thought that 10 days would be enough. But it was actually beautiful that 10 days was enough for me to connect with some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my whole entire fucking life. I became very close with some families, others I would visit. And even though we didn't develop a close relationship, just being in community with my people, my family's from Nablus, we're not from Gaza. I know I have extended family in Gaza that I've never met, will never meet because they're dead. And you know, that's what the colonizer wants. They want to separate us, right? And that's a big reason why being Palestinian, it's so important that we have each other and that we're aligned on the same mission, which is absolute liberation. forever and ever. And we're all dedicated to that. And I like to move with people who are moving compassionately. And I also like to give grace to those who aren't. So I think with mutual aid, it's important to remember, again, this is the world we're in. We all need to practice what it means to have a community pot. We are all already have been experiencing the effects of the end of capitalism, the end of empire. Unfortunately, we are the ones who will be hit the hardest the most first. There are people who've already been hit hardest the most first, and they've been struggling for years and years and years, decades and centuries. So I think for us, it's also just a reminder like, hey, we're actually practicing something. Like, this is the world we're in now. And when it comes to people evacuating from the worst situation, the whole entire fucking world, I met people who had just gotten in Egypt for, oh my God, there's a rainbow. That's so pretty. I met people who had just gotten here 30 days ago. I met people who got here right before, a day before everything started. Because a lot of people, the reason they would even leave in the first place, most people who are even allowed to leave are those with sick family members. I'm talking cancer. I'm talking, like you were mentioning earlier, amputated limbs. So there's an urgency for folks to leave. So some of those families that I met actually left beforehand. This one father I met, he had just invested all this money into a business. He was going to start a juice factory. He took out a $300,000 loan, and he was really excited to start his business. And then everything started. And now not only is he indebted to the loan that he's never going to make that return until he can go back or until something else can happen in this world. So he's also got his daughter's medical costs. And his son not only has, he's taking, like, his son is like 5 and he's taking like 50 medications. Medications cost money. Doctor visits cost money. Not to mention the Egyptian authority is not kind to Palestinians, especially because Palestinians don't even have refugee status. With refugee status, you get funding, you get taken care of, the government will help you out. There's none of that for Palestinians, especially in Egypt. Even the volunteers, some volunteers who want to go to the hospitals, they won't let them in. My sister has like a red, what do they call it? Not the Red Cross. What do they call it? The Red Crescent clearing. And they wouldn't even let them into the hospital. Sometimes what will happen is they don't let visitors stay long. So my sister was trying to stay, and they said, if you don't leave right now, we're not gonna let you come back. And then the next day they found out that anytime they stay longer, they punish the patients. And these hospitals, by the way, they're basically prisons. They can't leave. These 2 girls that I met, they were allowed to leave the hospital twice in a matter of 8 months. So one of them wanted a pair of rollerblades. So I bought her a fucking pair of rollerblades. And sometimes your mutual aid goes to that, right? I'm not going to say no to an 8-year-old who has nothing to do in life but rollerblade in a hospital courtyard, right? So that's what I'm saying about this relationship building. It's also community building. Everybody right now, as we're breaking, we should be building. So right now, my choice is to build with people in Egypt. And also some of this mutual aid goes into, I'm working with wonderful people in Egypt who are sending funds directly into Gaza as well, like we were talking about earlier, tents, food programs that are also mutual aid food programs, right? So it's people like us doing the work in Gaza on the ground to make sure that there's free food available. I was rolling cigarettes in Cairo, and one of the people I met, he says to me, he says, that costs $100 in Gaza right now. Imagine, by the way, I had quit smoking for 4 years and I picked it up again when I went to Egypt. So if you don't want to smoke cigarettes, don't go to Egypt. But basically, and I was just like, damn, that perspective is crazy. Imagine not even being able to smoke a fucking cigarette. It's like, we have so much reprised from the world, even though, like, for me, I'm in the negative, baby. Like, I'm in the negative, like, we're struggling here. But I could still buy some cigarettes, like, and everything just gets put into perspective. I look at the clear sky here. I live in the mountains and I'm like, wow, this will never be the view for so many people, because they will be dying, and, I'm going to bring my Muslim shit into this. The only piece is just like thinking like heaven, the highest layer is just Gaza right now, in my opinion. No one has to believe that. I'm not somebody who pushes faith. That's just for me, my own peace that I'm finding in this. But anyway, I think the mutual aid, it goes beyond the money. It's community, it's relationship building. The people who you are giving money to are building relationships with these people. We are asking them, hey, how do you want this to go? Where do you want this money to go to? How much do you need for X, Y, and Z? Here's what I raise. I'm going to help you figure out how to get to where you want to be. And a lot of the story collecting that I've been doing, I'm also having like my own moral thing with it, right? How do I tell the story in a non-exploitative way? Somebody showed me, a journalist friend of mine, everybody please go follow her. Her handle is Iman IT. I think, Noor, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you follow Iman? I think that's her handle. She's from Gaza. She's a journalist. Sorry, go ahead, Noor.
I think I was just confirming that you're right. She might have an underscore in there, so I'm gonna double check.
Yeah, so she's awesome. She's from Gaza. She's not currently in Gaza, but she's a journalist and she's dealing with the journalist stuff that's going on. She showed me this post from the Wall Street Journal where it was these photographs of people in Gaza. But in the caption, the angle was all twisted. Anytime you see, following the violent attacks of October 7th, anytime you see the word HAMAS, anything that is said after that will justify genocide. And all of these major media outlets are doing that. So the work that I'm committed to in this storytelling is also so that I can be one of many outlets where people who want to share the story have a way to do it, where we're not fucking their like autonomy up, right? We're not fucking up their idea of what it means to be a human. So if you truly believe in the humanness, the human element of this, you need to be investing in mutual aid. It's really fucking important. We are building relationships, lifelong relationships. One of the people I met reminded me of my mom. She was showing me pictures on her phone of what her home looked like before it was bombed. And the whole house was designed exactly how my mom would design it. And I was like, wow, I got to FaceTime my mom right now. And I FaceTime my mom and now they're besties. And it's just like, in terms of like, I know a lot of people ask like, oh, do people need to be on the ground? That's the kind of thing where like, I wouldn't explore that option unless you know someone directly on the ground. If you know organizers on the ground, just because when it comes to the kind of work that needs to be done, it is decentralized and it should stay that way, because also there's a lot of suppression. People are getting visits from the feds. People are getting stopped on the way back. Even things like a Western Union transfer could get you in deep water. I did one myself and I was nervous on my return. Luckily, I looked gay enough that was more of a problem. So I was good. But, you know, it's not an easy space to navigate. A lot of people I know who are doing this work are also queer and visibly trans. So, you know, that's hard when you're traveling anywhere in the world. So I think that it's important to remember that the people we're meeting are also people who want to learn from us and they want to connect with us as well. There's a shared growth in this process with one another. And we protect each other and we practice that protection. We even joke about it. Like one of the men that I'm friends with, I was like, oh, you're going to be our mahram. Mahram is this term in Islam where like you need a male chaperone. And I was like, listen, I do feel like I need one. So like, you're protecting me now, you know? And, you know, we can joke like that. We can reach the levels of humor and knowledge and understanding. One of them was a journalist himself. He's a journalist currently with Mondoweiss, and he's from Gaza too. And he was, I spent like, you know, so much time with him. And every time I talk to him, I'm learning and I'm growing. So selfishly, I think as a Palestinian, this is how I want to show up for my people, you know? No offense, I'm getting sick of the organizing scene around here. Being a public figure, people want to scrutinize you and attack you all the time. You know, I'm not making any money off of this. I have no evil intentions besides like, I'm just trying to figure out how to like heal myself and my people. And like, that's it. Like, that's all I'm after. So I'm just trying to like do my best here. And I always remind people that with the content I make, the messages that I produce, the mutual aid that I send out, there's always think of it as like a council of Palestinians that I'm talking to at any given moment, and that's how we honor these moments, is collectively thinking, collectively working, aligning ourselves on common goals and practices. Not everybody, we are going to make mistakes. All right. Some people you might not agree with, but we really got to stick together because this is all greater than us. My account was suspended twice in the past 3 weeks. I have been saying fuck Zionism for over 9 months. I've been saying fuck Zionism for 4 years openly on the internet, even longer than that, just in life in general. And it wasn't until I started aggressively fundraising where they took my account down. So the evilness of it all, these fucking Zionists, they don't even want people to fucking eat after they've survived. So I think it's really important to remember that this is very political. When we're traveling, that's not our message. When we're traveling, it's a humanitarian mission. Publicly, it's a humanitarian mission. But on this call, I just need everyone to know that we are very, very serious about how important it is to stay engaged in other ways as well. So the escalation happens both out of your pocketbooks and on the streets. City council, I believe in a variety of tactics. I think everybody has their strengths. I would shoot myself if I ever had to do city council work, but I know people who love it. I know Palestinians who love it, and I support them because they're good at it. And divestment needs to happen as well. So back to mutual aid, I just really want to emphasize how important it is to also remember this is a community initiative. So be mindful of your own. I talk to people, like I just met somebody, I live in Bumblefuck, New York, and we were handing out flyers for a fundraiser event we did here down the street. And this lady, it was so beautiful to see the reception of people saying, thank you for doing this. Almost as if to say, we want to do something, but we don't know what to do. So if you want to be a leader, if you want to be an organizer, just do it. Don't wait for anybody's permission. Just fucking go. That's what my wife did. You know, she just like found, we have like our community here, a community of 10 people. We held this event and 200 people showed up. And we raised money, and that's going to go to families. And people donated, and people spent their time there. Noor was there, and they could talk about it too. And it was beautiful just to be like how important it is also to have fundraiser events in person. Like, this is awesome. But if you can do in person shit, it's good, because what will happen is you will have a community of folks that you can work with together to identify, to start organizing in other ways locally. Because local stuff is really, really important as well. And if you talk to Palestinians, they'll tell you, hey, go fuck up your shit in America, because you guys are the reason all this is happening, right? So like we need to fuck it up here. So define that how you will. And just one last note with mutual aid, there's a post, I forget which account posted it, but it basically talks about how to percentagize, if that's a word, your own income. So people were telling me, oh, you know, every month, I put all the rest of my savings into this, right? I think it's a beautiful thing to do. I think it's also important to remember that we need to also be mindful of ourselves. So don't feel like I can only give $5. What's the point? No, if you only have $5, just give $5. Just like if you were in New York City and somebody said, I need $1, give them a fucking dollar. Okay. So do what you can, practice it in the ways that make sense. Tap into your families, your rich friends, everybody. There's also some people, I'm not organized enough to do something like this, but some people have, like, you can set up a subscription like a Netflix, $8 a month. I mean, if you're not going to cancel your Netflix subscription, then go ahead and just add that on and think of it like you're not even going to remember that it got taken out. So there's many ways that you can do this sustainably. So think about sustainability for yourself and your communities. And yeah, just keep the energy up. Don't be afraid to be loud. I don't care where you live. I'm telling you, I live in probably one of the most racist parts of this country. You'll see an Israeli flag next to a Confederate flag, you know, right by side, you know, and that's it. That's the message. It's as clear as day. So don't be afraid of those people, though. You know, protect each other, hire security, you know, get creative. I always joke with people who live in the South, get your horses out, you know, bring your horses out, because those cops have horses. Horse girls, where are you, horse girls?
We need a cowboys and cowgirls who support Palestine.
Exactly. So I think I'll end my rant there. If I have anything else that I remember that I feel like, damn, everybody should hear this, but I didn't remember how to say it, obviously I'll say for the Q&A. I don't respond to DMs. I don't respond to social media. I have like a form in my bio that you can fill out if you need anything from me, but I'm here to answer questions at the end of this specific to this, and that can also help me maybe even tailor my content to inform people better. Happy to also work with the organizers to figure that part out as well. Thank you all for your
Thank you, Rand. Thank you so much. Your passion is felt, your heart is felt, your representation of your people and also of this energy of like, and we're one. Like what I really got about what you were saying is like relationships are more important than transactions. Like, yes, we need money to go to these places, but we need to humanize this process. Something Alyssa said earlier was the only difference between Palestinians and us here is where we were born and how, and basically how we ended up here. This could be happening to any one of us. This could be happening to any one of us. Seeing mutual aid as a lateral exchange rather than I have and they don't have, so let me give down. We're not giving down. We're giving laterally, and let's build up the karma because, like Rand said, capitalism is in its last throes, and we don't know what's happening next in terms of the ecocides, climate catastrophes, genocides, slow suicides of addiction, state-sanctioned homicide. Like, we got to stay in the spirit. You say Allah, I say Mother Goddess, and I meet you right there. Like, we know that next will be all taken care of. And right now, what we're building is an energy of what we're going to leave to our children. So thank you for sharing that piece on mutual aid, Rand. I feel very fired up. I want to say thank you to all the participants, everyone who's tuning in. You are here for Art for Palestine, our community gathering, one of our many times that we will be creating spaces where we can come together and gather and feel the spirit of humanity, feel the spirit of our infinite life and love, and say, how can we channel our energy, our time, our volunteer work, our art, our money, and our love for life in a collective way towards those who are being systematically oppressed by oppression at the moment. So I'm grateful to have you here, Rand. And we're going to call up Noor in just a moment to give us a little bit. They're going to school us a little bit of a history lesson in Palestine, some key note pieces specifically around Noor, what are some key pieces that people should have in their back pocket, in their cue cards, as we are advocating for Palestine, as people are learning to advocate for Palestine? What are some key pieces of the history that would be helpful? And how have you seen people shift and change, given not only the passion and the drive of this movement, but just the good facts of history? So I'm really grateful to have you here. You're incredibly knowledgeable and you have a way of delivering things that is like bite-sized and saucy and like right to the point. So grateful for your like in the space and your education and your knowledge. Thank you for bringing all of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's so amazing to be here with you all. It's always amazing to hear Ren speak. I have like not boots. I speak in very like I am an old lady who speaks in Gen Z terminology, so I'll probably be giving this education while also saying slay and boots. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, Rand. I love you so much, and that was really beautiful, and I'm so proud of you always. Okay, anyways, now moving forward. I think I was trying to think about how to go about this. I have hordes of material gathered, and I think what I might do is maybe talk about how we can remain educated rather than like schooling people. I mean, I have a link tree that I will direct you all to. I think somebody can send it in the chat. And that is set into categories basically that are very long. There's dozens of links per category, and the education section, because there's an education section, is the particularly, I think, longest section of my Palestine links. So if you want to learn things and you want to know like facts and figures and you want to go to like your little like Palestine study moment, I'm going to direct you to my link tree, and I'm going to ask you to just go link by link by link by link, because that'll really truly tell you what you need to know. Okay, well, I'm going to kind of do a similar thing to Ren, where I'm just going to let the ancestors speak through me. But I think I just sort of want to like reiterate this message of like collective liberation is a marathon, not a sprint. And that especially like applies to Palestine, and especially applies to Palestine when it comes to educating ourselves and our community. I think there's this like misconception that you cannot speak about or advocate for a liberation movement unless you know every single thing about the history or about the movement. And like not only is that false, it's simply unrealistic. No one person, even scholars and educators, will know everything there is to know about anything. And I just really, really want to emphasize that with Palestine, I feel as though so many people have been immobilized by feeling like they don't know enough, when like at baseline, all you need to know is this has been a 76 plus year genocide, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, occupation. This is not just something that happened in 1948 with the Nakba, but prior with British colonialism and imperialism. And I think that's what's really important to understand with Palestine and with most liberation movements, is that at the heart of this all is decolonialism. And in order for us to fight for collective liberation, we have to understand decolonial thought, and we have to understand collectivism and mutual aid in the way that Ren's talking about it, and understand education from that perspective. Because when we're thinking about things like history in our education system, who writes these things, right? Did we learn about Palestine in our high schools? No. I wonder why. It's not that the things that were happening in Palestine weren't happening as we were all in school, but we weren't learning about that. And I think that's sort of where I like to make my content from, and where I like to speak from, and sort of where I'm going to encourage people to come from. Is the biggest thing I advocate for online is bringing yourself into everything that you do, and bringing your advocacy into that. So I'm a nerd, and that's why I've integrated Palestine into nerddom in a way. I just started volunteering at the Lesbian History Archives. I'm not sure if you all know about the like intentional destruction of libraries and archives in Palestine. But that is something that has been ongoing since 1948 and prior as well. It's important to remember that when a genocide is occurring, you not only want to kill individual people as in their bodies, but you also want to erase them entirely. That's why we were talking earlier about the importance of names and naming people and remembering their names. That has to do with education and with record keeping as well. When we are actively destroying family records, when we are actively destroying one-of-a-kind documents from lands that are ancient, from peoples who have been around for thousands of years, who come from cultures who care about preserving history. Palestine, that is a very ancient land. It's also an ancient land that was full of people who care about the preservation of their culture and their heritage and their history. And we have for so long kept extensive records of so many of everything. And I think when it comes to talking about Palestine education, that's what I want to remind people is A, where you're getting your education from, because we need to understand that we live in a Western society, at least if you're in the Western hemisphere, I don't know. But at least where I'm in a place where my media does not reflect, in my opinion, an accurate representation of what's going on around it. And it's important for me to therefore account for that when I'm educating myself in my community. That is the thing that I want to emphasize here tonight. In my link tree, the reason that I went about it the way that I went about it, I was trying to emphasize that education can come from multiple places, and that it has to come from multiple places. And also that we need to understand that we have been programmed and quite honestly propagandized to, since our birth, to believe certain things, because as we have said multiple times, and we will re-emphasize, the United States is the largest and most powerful ally that Israel has. So the United States has a very clear imperative to keep its citizens and uninformed about the things that they don't want us to know about, so that they can continue to do what they want to do without us knowing, right? So I think that's why things like education is so imperative and so powerful, and why people are normally, I think there's like a lot of charge around education in negative and positive ways, right? When we think about propaganda and the way in which it's so nefarious and deep-rooted, and how that aims to manipulate our education systems and has and does. But then also think about the ways in which we as communities, and through things like social media, even with all of the algorithm bullshit that happens, we were still able to connect with one another. And I don't think I've been online, by the way, I'm 23. I have been creating social media things since I was 13. And throughout a bunch of different eras and movements, and obviously moments of my life. So puberty, teenagedom, college, now like baby adulthood, I guess. I have never, ever in my entire life, through all of this content creating, and this entire time I've done really nerd content creating, seen so many people actually driven to be educated and actually like mass educating each other. It's been so invigorating to see it happen. And I think that's what I also want to emphasize, is that when I bring up the it's a marathon, not a sprint thing, that goes for education, in that we have to be constantly educating ourselves and constantly educating one another in our communities. Even though I am Palestinian, don't know everything. I learn from Rend every day. I'm sure Rend learns stuff from me. Like so on and so forth with our entire communities. And yeah, so the way that my link tree is sorted, and something that I just really wanted to point out, is that I feel as though there has been a lack of people understanding the importance of daily education about what is happening on the ground every single day. And there has also been a lack of urgency and continuous discussion of the attack on journalism that is happening on the ground, and the fact that journalists are still being killed every single day. And that makes it incredibly hard for us to access news that is happening on the ground. And that is education. That is education. And it's just so important, I think, for me as a diaspora Palestinian to emphasize that we need to be listening to Palestinians who are in Swana and who are in Palestine and who are in Gaza most specifically. And if you are not daily checking out what they are posting, then you are not doing enough. And I'm going to call you all out on that, because I, as a content creator and as somebody who did education content specifically, have watched the the like certain interest in like longer form content or in daily news content, like certain things that are maybe more uncomfortable or harder to sit through. I feel as though people have started to maybe like waver in their dedication towards, and that is something that we need to call out and nip in the butt immediately. So in my link tree, I had a section because so many people were just like, I don't know where to get my news. I don't know where to get my news. All of the news is so biased. And I went, guess what? Made a whole section for it. So not to say that this is perfect, but it's really important in like media literacy, if you've never learned media literacy, to understand biases of networks and where you're getting your media from, and as such to get diverse sources, even if that means some of your sources are knowingly biased, because most things are somewhat biased. There's kind of no way to escape that. But really, really emphasizing, and in my link tree, that is the emphasized point, that you are getting information from on the ground, from actually like people who are in the resistance, from actually like Gazans who are there living and breathing on the ground. So that is the first thing. And then heavy emphasis on learning the history. And when it comes to learning the history, again, where are you learning that from? Please, please, please continue to learn from Palestinians, and to learn from Palestinians from all backgrounds. I specifically do a lot of queer Palestinian work, and emphasize like and try to like amplify like women in GNC specifically. So a lot of the historical context that's on my social medias is around more queer Palestine work, but there is a plethora of things to learn about. And that's why I say to bring yourself into what you're doing, because if you're somebody who maybe like has a special affinity towards the environment, then you can learn about the history of the environment in Palestine and learn that olive trees have been purposely being destroyed for generations, that hundreds of thousands of them have been destroyed since 1948. And you can go down a rabbit hole from there for like hours, right? And yeah. I think that is my main points that I'd like to emphasize today. I know that we're probably short on time, and I can also rant for a while. So I'm going to direct you all to my link tree, emphasize that this is a marathon, not a sprint, emphasize that you are just as responsible for educating your community as you are yourself, and you're also far more powerful than you know, and you do not need a large following in order to have a large impact. I have met people who have gone to protests because of a friend posting it, their friend who has 12 followers. You can be that friend. Be that friend. Be dedicated. Post daily. You are far more powerful than you think you are. And all I want to emphasize is steadfastness, the continuation of this all, and also the interconnectedness of this all, because this is at the end of the day decolonialism, which means once there's a free Palestine, there's got to be a free everyone else.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Noor, your passion. Yes, let's give it up for Noor and Rand. But Noor is real. And if wherever you're at, just placing a hand on your body and taking a nice deep breath. Oh, if you need to do a little shake and just like it's the passion, it's the care, and it's the truth. That's what truth feels like in the body. When it's confusing and when it's all over the place and who's saying what, is like, get it up here. When you feel it, like, for me, it hits in my groin. It's like, my groin and my heart are both like, feel you. Thank you. Thank you. One piece that I want to emphasize is that, like a spiritual practice, education around what's happening on the planet has to be done every day. It's like going to the gym. You don't go once and say, I went to the gym and now I'm good. No, it's that whatever I contribute to daily is what's going to build in my system. Learning how to decolonize our own selves and our communities and our planet is going to take a lifetime, possibly many lifetimes. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So well said, Noor. And think of it like a spiritual practice. I'm coming to the altar of decolonization, which is the return to Mother Earth, which is a return to all of our indigenous ancestors. The practice of decolonization is inherently your spiritual birthright. The educational piece is your spiritual birthright. I know it can get scary. It's not in your head, it's in your DNA. Noor is calling forward your indigenous DNA. Thank you, Noor, for playing that drum. I'm like right here with you with my Celtic drum, sis. Just like, yes, this is the way. This is the way. Before the Roman Empire, before the Ottoman Empire, like we're right here with you. Right here with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Please stay on, everyone. We are going to have a question to answer at the very end. Raven, I'm going to hand it to you to reintroduce Alyssa for this last piece. That was so beautiful, you two. Yes. Thank you.
Wow. I'm just grateful we're going to get to see their beautiful faces again in a few minutes after we have our next incredible segment with Alyssa, who's going to take us into the evacuations and cash aid process. So like a lot of us hear the word evacuation and we're like, okay, we can maybe picture a dramatized version of that from something we've seen in a movie or something we imagine, but Alyssa has so much knowledge from being on the ground and working with people on the ground. We're going to get to hear about the challenges of that and about what we can do to support this process and make sure that cash is getting to the people who need it.
Thank you for that. Nora Rend, thank you for that. That was incredible. I just think it's so fucking important to emphasize that, like, not when Palestine is free, not if, but when, then we all got to get free, right? Like to talk about Bree's altar of decolonization. I mean, that's so fucking important because it's intersectional. This entire movement is. We all belong here. All of our ancestors want us to be here. This is where their energy is leading us, and that intersectionality is super important as an ethnically ambiguous South Asian, Afro-Latina, Indian, and Puerto Rican. I mean, all of these lands were colonized, right? With the British Empire had such far-reaching claws, and within somewhere or another, we all need to be here. And I think we really need to dig really deep into our roots and find our indigenous roots and talk to our ancestors and bring those energies here into these conversations, because this should be something that we talk about every single day. That being said, I know that everybody has had a lot of questions about the way money moves. And that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. And I know that sometimes having these conversations leaves more questions than answers. And I know that can be kind of frustrating, but it is such a gray process. So I'll try to highlight cash movement issues first, and then dive into sort of talking about evacuations in a bit more of an anecdotal way. When we're talking about, a lot of people are questioning, where does money go when you send money to PayPal or to GoFundMe, or to just folks' bank accounts or Venmos? Starting at the very top, Israel's blocked cash imports to Gaza since October. Banks have run out of cash since very early on, at the start of this genocide. Banks like the Arab Islamic Bank and the Palestine Islamic Bank ran out of cash very, very early months. They were reporting shortages as early as October and November, and by December, a lot of the liquidity of these institutions was nearly decimated. There have been very few operational ATMs. I know a lot of us associate ATMs with such an easy way to just hop to, grab a couple bucks, and then go about your day. There have been very few operational ATMs throughout the Strip. The majority of them have been in Rafah, for Bank of Palestine ATMs. And as of the middle of May, as of, I believe, May 13th, there was an estimate given by the Palestine Economic Policy Research Institute that said there were only 5 physical branches of the Bank of Palestine and 7 ATMs left in the entire Strip, accessible for 2.2 million people. Think about that for a second. That is an absurdly low number of places to access cash. And even on the days that those places are accessible, there might not even be cash to get. That number's largely dwindled drastically since the Rafah incursion that began on May 6th. So that was a mid-May number. And since then, it's possible that there are none left. As far as functional use of the ATMs, people were using those ATMs to collect funds that they needed for not only crossing the Rafah border, you needed cash in hand to evacuate. Even if your evacuation was already paid for, a deposit was put down, you had a receipt, you needed cash to actually leave, to the tune of about 560 shekels, which a shekel is, I believe, 3.50 or 4 to $1 at this time. ATMs were also used at the time to buy goods and basic necessities. That's how people were getting cash in hand for their tents, their food, things like diapers and formula. Moving money has been so difficult. Any grassroots org, any nonprofit will tell you that has been the most difficult challenge that they've faced in helping folks that are not only in Gaza, but folks that have been able to evacuate to Egypt and elsewhere. Western banks have made it increasingly difficult to send money to anyone that they deem affiliated with or associated with Palestine, a Palestinian movement. A lot of Western banks have actually closed people's accounts or placed holds on accounts that have attempted to transfer money directly into Bank of Palestine accounts. So that became an option that was null and void very, very early on. And we moved to what we would maybe call gray methods for money transfer. Money that's collected via GoFundMe's now and PayPal can be sent through a few methods. There are some money exchange businesses that are still operational in Gaza. Operational is a loose term, that had large stores of currency. They were quite liquid in both shekels as well as Egyptian pounds and US dollars. They're still able to cash in Western Union transfers, provided that they have network connectivity. A lot of these owners, however, have been charging really hefty commissions to get cash for folks, or to give people cash, anywhere from 10 to 15%, 10 to 50%, I apologize, for the amount that they want. So if you need $1,000, you might be out $2,000. The other businesses and individuals that might have cash in hand right now are pharmacists and other merchants who have access to, working, again, network connections, functional credit card machines. They charge similar commissions for access to funds. Again, we're relying almost entirely on how liquid businesses were before this genocide and aggression began. The majority of the families have felt it safer to keep the bulk of their fundraising funds in banks in Egypt or in the hands of trusted friends and family. US, across Europe, you'll see a lot of these GoFundMes are managed by friends and family that are in the United States, in Europe, and Canada, in the hopes that they can use it to fund evacs. But now that those evacs have been stalled for 2 months and they need those funds, most of those funds have been sliced in half based on a lot of these fees that they're paying, the commissions that people are taking. There are more reliable payment methods popping up now, virtual payment methods like PalPay, not to be confused with PayPal, Vodafone Cash, and crypto transfers have been really heavily utilized in the last few months to get money to individuals and businesses. Any that have any liquidity left, again, for a hefty fee. And then there are, of course, ways that money has been funneled across borders in the form of US dollars or Egyptian pounds through largely the Kerem Shalom and Rafah borders. Kerem Shalom mostly now, since Rafah has been closed. You can't really share more details on these transport methods because there are numerous safety concerns for the individuals and the companies involved. But if there is any cash flowing into the strip, those are the methods that they're coming in by. And then I think the last thing that's really important to remember is that there are banks in the north that have been sealed shut. The vaults are closed. There's no security. There's no way to access. To the tune of somewhere in the ballpark of 100, like hundreds of millions of shekels are just sitting in banks in the north, and people have no access to this money. And they're afraid to access this money because there's absolutely no security or safety for them, right? If the IOF realizes that they're getting cash out of these closed banks, they will target those banks and that money will be gone too. I think that's a quick summary, to the best of my ability, on cash flow issues into and out of Gaza, and for Palestinians that were helping even outside of the strip. Talking about evacuations is, for me, largely anecdotal, and I welcome kind of any questions from both Raven or Bree in the process. And I can only speak to my direct experience, but I started working on evacuations in early January after doing a round of cash aid. I realized after meeting injured children in hospitals that there had to be more that we could do. And so it was an initiative I felt really passionate about. At the very start, we were working with, and was working with Safebo as a case manager, with a company called Yahala. That might be a name that you see floating around a lot. They are a travel and tourism company by name, but they are one that has really close ties to the Egyptian military. And so they have been the ones facilitating the most consistent and reliable evacuations since the start of this aggression. To put into context, prior to October 7th, it cost a couple $100s to get a visa to exit via the Rafah crossing. Once October 7th happened and these evacuations became much more urgent, the cost for adults at the start was approximately $5,000. For children under the age of 13 was about $2,500. Now that's an exorbitant amount of money for a place where there's no money coming in anymore. That since then has fluctuated a crazy amount. Yahala has been victim to scandals galore. The largest one was in February when they had a scammer who was actually taking people's registration money. And so I think one thing to put into context is the way Yahala looks. It is not near the Rafah border. It is closer to Cairo. There are lines that are hours and hours long. And sometimes it's impossible for folks to even get to the front of this line. If you don't speak Arabic, you are shit out of luck if you need to negotiate or even get to the front of the line. And a lot of it depends on who you know or what sort of relationship you can establish with the company. Safebo was fortunate enough to have facilitated enough evacuations that Yahala thought of them as a reliable source of evacuation funding and money. And so we were able to establish those connections to get some of those registrations in. But the average person just standing in those lines in heat for hours and hours did not get really lucky in registering their families. And those registrations were also really ambiguous. You basically get a bus pass, a pass that says, here's a bus ticket. Once you cross the border, you can hop on a bus that brings you to a central info center location, and then good luck to you. The Egyptian government is not taking care of refugees. They are not allowing children to attend public school. Public hospitals are doing some really, really shady things to Palestinian refugees. They have been known to confiscate passports. They've been known to give really inflated prices for medical care. It's as absurd as you can imagine, and possibly even more so for refugees that are on the ground. Back to evacs, those prices of 5,000 for an adult to 2.5 or so for children absolutely did not stay that way. Gate coordinators became a really popular method of evacuation. What that basically means is it's a person-to-person connection. If you know somebody that works in the military, that works at the border, that works in an embassy, a lot of folks were doing this truly out of what they believed, after speaking to some of them, was the goodness of their heart, thinking, you know what, I'm doing something good, but I got to make money off of it. Living under a regime such as the Egyptian one, I think that we need to be compassionate towards some of these folks as well. And it's absolutely exploitation, but I think we all understand the need to make ends meet. But it did get to a point where these gate coordinator routes, folks that could more easily get your name on an evac list, we're charging up to $18,000 to $20,000 for a young military-aged male.
18 to $20,000.
$18,000 to $20,000 with no firm guarantee that once that young male got to the border, there wouldn't be an officer there that said, too young, too fit, too healthy, can't let this person cross.
Oh my God. It's heartbreaking to think of the challenges that these people are facing.
It's exploitative at best, but again, right, you're looking at these folks that they think they're doing something good and they need to make ends meet themselves. And it's such an interesting conundrum in your mind, an emotional sort of impasse where you're like, am I mad at these people for charging this much, or am I happy that they're at least allowing some sort of way for folks to get out? And I'm personally never really sure where I landed on that. To profit off of suffering is horrible, but to also just exist in a state of not making enough money and suffering yourself should also not be allowed. And that's where it comes into play, where this capitalism, totalitarianism, this imperialist regime that we live under, that everybody else lives under, the dictatorship that is Egypt, is the cause of a lot of this exploitation. These gate coordinator routes were few and far between. If we could secure them, the majority of them would only allow women and children or elderly. And if they were elderly, they needed documentation of a lot of their health issues. And again, these were really person to person. We were getting funds to the ground via Western Union, some US dollar bank accounts, folks flying in legal amounts of cash, which is just $10,000 per customs regulations. And hoping that the gate coordinators were not only honest when given these funds, but also the intermediary, if a lot of the folks that were facilitating evacs didn't speak Arabic, that intermediary would also be honest and hold their money in a safe place. So there was a lot of money lost. There are a lot of stories of individuals who were scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars because they chose somebody that just wasn't reliable, that was trying to make a quick buck. Some of these gate coordinator routes were able to get folks out within 72 hours of registration, as recently as the beginning of May, because of the registration scandal that Yohala had undergone in February. They had a 6-week delay at one point in approving evacuations. And so more and more people were flooding to these gate coordinator routes that eventually got overwhelmed. And that's when they almost entirely stopped taking young men. Before the Rafah crossing closed, it was next to impossible to evacuate young men. And that hurt a lot of communities, including queer communities. I think queer Palestinians are not talked about enough, but there were a number of queer folks, trans women in particular, that had a really hard time crossing because male presenting, male passports, young, perceived as male at the border, were often denied crossing just because of how they presented. And of course, in that situation, an argument can't be made, well, no, this is a woman, because they're not hearing that. And that, you'd be denied that crossing at a cost of $20,000 with no guarantee that you're going to get that money back. So where evacuations were sort of left off was eventually Yohala realized that inflating its prices, once they sorted out the situation with the scammer who took a lot of people's money back in February, it was about April until that cleared up. And they realized that inflated prices was driving business away from them and towards gate coordinators. And gate coordinator routes are not as legal or official for the Egyptian government. So they dropped their prices back to the usual $5,000 per adult and the $2,500 per child, which we started referring to as cheap. And oh, that's great, when it's really, really not. And they took a number of registrations, several hundred, before the borders closed, many of which are still pending. So are a lot of people's gate coordinator registrations. But since the Rafah incursion, that crossing has been entirely closed. There have been a ton of rumors that it would be handed over to some sort of private military company. That's never a good sign. Or eventually to the United States. That hasn't happened yet. Israel has not given up control of the Rafah border in a sustainable way. There have been a few trial medical evacuations through Kerem Shalom, but Israel is also not allowing an influx of those or any sort of legitimate access to those. So right now, evacuations have effectively ground to a halt in any legal capacity. And so that's where that's at right now.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a lot. I want to invite everyone to just take a nice deep breath.
Mhm.
It's scary. And even when evacuations were happening, you're pulling families apart. And I think that's really important to remember. You are separating fathers from their wives and children. You are separating brothers from the rest of their siblings and their parents if they're young and fit, because you want to increase the rest of the family's chance of evacuating. I mean, there's so much sacrifice being made. One family that is still really near and dear to my heart that I assisted in evacuating was a photojournalist family, and his parents have a lot of children, very, very young ones, and then some in their 20s. And one thing that has stayed with me since then is the father saying, "Get all the young ones out. Get them out because they have the highest chance of survival and being approved to cross the border." And he kept a lot of his adult children with him and didn't even bother trying to register them. He said, "Get the rest of them out. Get my wife out." The son that was a photojournalist was already out for medical treatment prior to that. But to get his wife out, his newborn out, to the babies out, all the children under the age of 13, that was their priority, and they pushed for that. And so now it's the father who has his own health issues, and I believe 3 or 4 of his adult children with him still in Rafah. And that's sort of the internal battle that a lot of these families are facing. We can't leave together, so who's most important to get out?
I just want to take a moment there, human to human, and just think about your family for those who are tuning in. If you were in charge of your family, if you were the able-bodied, able-minded person, and you had to make a kind of decision where it was like, we could only get out a few members of my family. Just, you don't have to stay there for long, but literally just like touch that water with your toe and then come right back here with a breath. Because what we're talking about is free Palestine, but what we're also talking about is what Ran and Noor started to talk about, which is decolonization. Our planetary system has been in a colonial mindset for over 2,000 years. Deep, deep in agricultural, patriarchal, colonial mindset for 2,000 years, and in some places on the planet, almost 4,000 years. These kinds of decisions should not be needed to be made by humans ever. These are not the kinds of questions that we should be asking ourselves at this time and age with our technology, with how much we know about our interconnectedness as beings that can be scientifically proven that all beings on planet Earth are one being. Science and our spirituality has united as one. So when we start to talk about the money and the border crossings, I know it can get very overwhelming for people. I want us to invite in a breath again. And we're contributing our time, energy, and money to Palestine right now because this is the first of thousands of fronts on our planet right now of families having to ask this very question. Who in my family do I need to make a decision about for survival? This is a question of millions of people on our planet right now. And I can order groceries from my cell phone in any moment. 25% of the people on our planet have access to clean food and water, job security, home security, body security, because 75% of the people on our planet do not. Free Palestine is one example, and the example we're focusing on of how systems of oppression have enslaved and continue to cause harm to others in order for us, in quotation marks, to have the illusion of safety and freedom. No one is free until we're all free. No one is safe until we're all safe. And no one is liberated until we're all liberated. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for all of that information and your passion and your commitment. I want to sit down and buy you a meal and just pick your brain and heart. You are so fascinating, and the way your soul has chosen to participate in this touches me deeply, and I'm excited to continue to be in touch with you about this and more. Thank you. Thank you for
One really last thing. Ren said, organizing can start small. It can be 2 or 3 of you, and you can have a huge impact. That's really important if folks come away from this thinking, I want to get involved in work like that, there will still be more work like that. Just brace yourself for conversations with families. Brace yourself for those really tough conversations and remember that it's 1,000 times harder for them when you have to talk to them and say, we don't have bandwidth for another person, or we don't have money for another person, or pick which one of your kids these funds should go to, are the kinds of conversations a lot of these grassroots efforts have been having with families that they're helping evacuate. And it sounds so callous and so cold and so fucking cruel, because it is, and it's the only way you can save maybe one life, because $6,000 can't cover 4 kids. And you have to be the person asking that father or that mother or that older brother, because he's the head of household now that the parents are dead. Where do you want this 6,000 to go? Do you want it to go to your 3-year-old brother or the 4-year-old? You have to pick, because I can't pick for you. So I'm encouraging everybody to do this work. But it fucking sucks. And it sucks 1,000 times more for the people that are going through it. So do it and find the communities that can support you through doing it. Find those 2 or 3 people, those 5 people, those 10 like-minded folks that you can just sit with in a room and scream.
Yeah.
Super important. And thank you both for facilitating all of these conversations as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Mm-hmm. It's our pleasure. Yeah. And I want to invite everybody who's on this call, if you are just tuning in on more of the late night tip, welcome, welcome, welcome. You're hearing Raven's voice. You just heard Alyssa's voice, and you're hearing Bree's voice as well. We're all here with Art for Palestine. And I want to center on what we can do right now in this moment to integrate some of that sorrow. If you have a journal, a piece of paper, a diary, something that you can write in, a writing tool with you, or draw in, or paint with, perhaps, that's going to be a really beautiful, soothing, self-soothing tool I want to invite us all to use in our next segment here. So we're going to have a very special guest who is going to help us come out of our minds a little bit and into our bodies and ground some of this knowledge that we have with some creative practice. We have Mary Hooley, who's coming in to do a little painting segment for us, so we can all start to feel that art is important, because art helps our nervous systems capacitate these huge feelings. And you guys are all warriors of love and light and liberation just from being here and saying yes to taking in all of this knowledge. So I want to invite you to choose art as a tool as well in your toolkit, an important one to help you find your way through this very complex maze of emotions. And when we do art together, it makes the earth better. I really believe that. And also want to mention that we have the Art for Palestine collection. And so this is a collection of artwork from people like you that is submitted, that's online in our shop. When I say our shop, I mean our shop. So please share this link with your friends as well. There are so many beautiful pieces that you can purchase and gift, that you can own. You can also contribute your own art. So if you have something on your heart, a painting, a tapestry, whatever it is, we're going to be expanding that collection and helping to really create a foundation, a base for visual artists, as well as perhaps even musicians and storytellers, to put our work together for the common good of this cause. So please, please, please reach out to us. If you want to contribute to Art for Palestine in any way beyond this event, if you're like, I'm so inspired, I want to do more, I want to help this fundraising effort, I want to bring my community in, we are a yes. Our arms, our chat rooms, our emails are open to you. And Ryan and Daniela, thank you so much. They are behind the scenes holding it down right now, you guys. And we're going to have them on for the Q&A as well, because you need to see the faces behind this beautiful work. Bree and I were just so happy to be able to plug into an amazing team of people, brilliant minds who are orchestrating this. So we will do so much more together. Mary, are you with us, babe? Are you ready to hop on?
Yeah, this is the first of many.
Yes, it is the first of many.
Hello, hello.
Yes, Mary.
Yay, welcome.
So, does this work?
It is working.
Yes, love
Did
the
you hear that?
sound. Yes,
Okay.
DJ
Okay.
Mary in the house.
And let's see. How do I get this? Start camera.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, get a load of that,
Beautiful.
right?
I did.
Oh yeah, I've been working on this throughout the show while listening to all the music and comedy and information and everything. And yeah, this thing rocks, dare I say. Um so a little bit about me. I do a weekly live stream. Some of the people watching are like my regulars, and we chat about what's going on. We act like silly geese, but there's also room for people to be like, "Oh, I had the worst day at work today," or "Oh my God, I just got dumped," and then everyone in the comments is, "Ah, that's terrible," blah, blah. And it's a good vibe. And there were so many heavy topics tonight, and I think what you guys were saying is so true. It's like doing some sort of art practice or journaling.
Mhm.
It's really good to integrate that stuff because um so important that we don't burn out. It's so important that we can be helping and doing our part for as long as possible. And so whether you're doing art or screaming or just having a good group of people that you can vent to, I think all of that is important, dare I say.
I love that so much. It just reminds me of those circles of older women knitting, and they would call them stitching bitches, little cross
Totally.
stitch girlies,
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all need those safe spaces to just feel. But talk a little bit about the soothing experience of doing something with your hands while you're also maybe chatting about something that's really hard to talk about.
I think it's cool because you kind of go on autopilot. You kind of just gab and whatever comes out comes out. And when I'm just at home painting by myself, I feel like my brain will really go to places in a good way, not
Mm.
no, it's easy to spiral about the things going on in the world, or oh, this person was so fucked up to me the other day. What the hell? But sometimes I feel like when I'm painting, I'm more thinking about the paint itself, or like noticing that I'm getting better at something that, oh, last year I wasn't really as good as that one thing. I think I sort of cracked how to add shine
Mm.
something. So it kind of stretches your brain in a good way. It also kind of reminds me of, I bet some of you guys have probably heard of this study. I think it was done with like American veterans with PTSD. They have them play Tetris while they talk about their trauma, and like the people that play Tetris versus the people that don't play Tetris while talking have way better results. So I think there is something to Tetris, painting, knitting, whatever. Yes, like EMDR, I would agree with that. I've done EMDR before, and that was really crazy, the stuff that if you guys haven't done it, at least when I did it, it's like you do the tapping left and right, and then your therapist stops you and says, like, what do you think? And like the things that come to your mind, you're like, oh my God, like I completely forgot about that memory. That's so crazy that that's in there. Um,
Can you tell us a little bit about the piece you're working on, the medium, and a little bit about like, the watermelon as a symbol of Palestine and maybe some of the pieces that are influencing you from Palestinian art and culture?
sure. I'm doing acrylic. A lot of people think I do watercolor, but I don't. It's acrylic.
Oh, it's beautiful. Cool.
And
Life like.
I like
Ugh.
doing acrylic on paper. There's no wrong way to paint. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of I feel like the biggest advice I give out to people when they're like, I'm trying to paint and I just feel like it looks so bad. What the hell am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
This isn't the one way to paint, but I tell people all the time, like, the paint doesn't have to be as wet as you probably think it does. Like, the way that I do it, I like mix, dun 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 dun,
Mhm.
and then I have my disgusting paper towel and I like blot off the extra. And then it's basically like the wetness of like, it's less wet than a marker even. It's like almost like a crayon at this point. So you have a lot of control and you don't have that thing that like new painters have where it's just like so wet and becomes a big puddle.
Mhm.
Um, but of course, if you want your painting to be a big wet thing, go crazy, babe. So yeah, I was trying to think of like what would
Great.
be um good imagery to use. I was like, should I do watermelon? That's kind of played out. Should I do olive soap? Should I do a keffiyeh? Ooh, that'd be really cool looking. Oh, but it's so hard though. Um, so yeah, I did the watermelon. I guess to be honest, I don't really know that much about it. I just know that it's a main crop in Palestine and a source of pride. Um,
Yeah. If Rand or Nora would like to jump on and share a
yeah,
little
I'd love to hear more.
here.
Yeah,
I
I can answer that actually.
Sure.
Can you guys
Come
hear
on
me?
video, babe.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And if anyone wants to
All
come
right.
on camera or stay off camera, come on in.
Yes, host.
The watermelon symbolism actually mostly was popularized due to social media, um, and also in Palestine. But largely the largest boost of it has been in recent social media usage. However, the origin of the symbolism is that the Palestinian flag, which we have right here, has the colors red, black, white, and green, and has been criminalized for being flown in Palestine multiple separate occasions. So the colors that are featured on a watermelon, especially when you slice it, are that of the flag. So the seeds are the black, the white of the rind, the green of the rind as well, and then the red, of course, of the like flesh of the fruit of the watermelon. So that's where the symbolism comes from because this is actually kind of rumored. This is fun nerd stuff. This is sort of like debated as to whether or not this is true. So if you really get into this, it's debated, but there's debates that when the flag was like illegal to fly in Palestine, when like periods of time where the flag was illegal to fly, people would slice watermelons and hold those up instead. Some people contest this and say that it really only was being used in social media and in more modern and Western ways. But there are some photos and some, uh, like evidence that there has been watermelon imagery used in this way, like on the ground in Palestine. So there's a long-winded nerd answer to the watermelon symbolism.
Okay, cool. So folklore, perhaps, mixed with history.
Yeah, the criminalization of the flag is still definitely a thing. So I think it's like it's one of those things where it's like I like to think of it like in the context of like from different perspectives. And like everyone I know from Gaza, like I'm not saying it's like a monolith, but the people who I've talked to are like, yeah, we like the watermelon. So I'm like, okay, cool. And like the thing is, because it's not illegal here, like we should fly the Palestinian flag. We should always fly the flag. We shouldn't replace the flag. But at the
Right.
same time, if Zionists are triggered by watermelons, that's also kind of cool, right? I think we give the watermelon, like we get to take back this power in so many ways. I'm all for Palestinians taking back power wherever we can. And if that means Zionists like having a fucking aneurysm over like a goddamn watermelon, then it's like, all right. But I also, again, I don't think it should be replaced. I think we should always fly the Palestinian flag.
I'm gonna retweet that. Retweet.
Not illegal here. Maybe soon you're not going to get bombed by airstrikes. So like, let's keep everything in perspective. Let's not let our fear rule our modes of thinking and our ways of moving.
Yeah, totally.
I love that so much. I want to just flow us into our Q&A, into a space where, you know, you guys who are listening, and there's been an average of like 50 people like in this room with us. I just want to celebrate all of you who've been with us from the beginning, and even if you've just been in and out, like thinking about, I'm literally imagining 50 of us sitting in this room that I'm in right now, and I'm feeling the immensity of every single one of your hearts, your prayers, your joy, your passion for being here. Imagining you also like side eating your dinner or feeding your families or whatever else you're doing in your homes. And I just want to speak a blessing of gratitude over your life right now, wherever you are. Just may you know how loved you are, and that we are so happy to meet you, even in just this etheric, weird, off-camera way. And Ryan and Daniela, please come on and join us. I would love to make sure that everyone gets to see your faces as well. Catherine, Alyssa, if you want to come back on. Anybody who's been a part of this team, welcome, guys. Everybody, can you just throw some hearts and flames in the chat for this incredible team of Ryan and Daniela who have just put this together? And Catherine, like, hello, take yourselves off mute. Say hi to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
So grateful.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. Like, it's so heartwarming seeing that we have, you know, like we said, 50 some odd people that have been here throughout the whole night. Honestly, we could not have put together a better group of people. Like, once, you know, running all this behind the scenes, it's like, okay, we've got somebody else coming out next. Let's go. And then when we finally got to, you know, Mary here, I'm like, oh, hey, look, we planned this perfectly. We need to come down a little bit. And so I'm just so grateful the way everything came together. And, you know, I'm just so happy that we have all of you here. You're experts in all of your fields, and you gave your entire night to us. And the donations have meant so much to us. Daniela, I don't know if you want to say a little bit.
Yeah.
That have been coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already like practically crying because of how emotional I feel about just how perfectly everything has come together. I know that we've all faced incredible challenges with just pulling everything together and some hiccups along the way. But regardless, everybody on this team has been incredibly resilient, accommodating, collaborative, and it's so special. And I just really, I guess I'll go back into before we even started this campaign. I felt so incredibly isolated because I felt like I was the only person in my area who felt incredibly passionate about advocating for Palestine. And just soon after developing this campaign together with Ryan and the original Art for Mankind team, I really feel like we found our community, and it's so incredibly beautiful. Thank you to the artists, to the hosts, to the speakers who have put so much love and passion into this. I mean, I will already say that we've raised about $1,917, and that is something that we didn't have before, and it's so beautiful. And I feel like there's so much work to be done, but it's something that we can communicate to our families, and they're going to be so incredibly happy. They were asking us about this event all day, asking if it was still happening and about the plan. And I'm just really happy to convey this message and just this immense support to them. I know it's going to mean so much, and I'm so emotional, but thank you guys. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Ryan. It's an honor to work with this team. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Rand, for bringing that energy and the Palestinian roots and the education and the passion. Thank you, Alyssa, for really bringing us in with the families and like direct faces that we can say we can bring something here. And Mary, for the art and your continued energy here, just so grateful. And Catherine is one of a few people of a team that has been holding like the logistics behind the scenes of what it takes to bring this together. And I don't want to speak for everyone here, but solidarity at this time is such an important part of the longevity. Like Nora was saying, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not like we donate once. It's not like even when Palestine is free, that is the beginning of our liberation story. That is the beginning. We get to talk about Congo, Sudan, Ethiopia. We get to talk about Hawaii. We get to talk about Puerto Rico. We get to talk about First Nations here on Turtle Island in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and throughout the Americas. We get to talk about what's happening in West Papua New Guinea. We get to talk about the eco crisis. This is all connected. Queer trans liberation is connected to Palestine. Palestine is the thread on the sweater that we need to unravel. And your participation, your solidarity, your soul in showing up tonight and continuing to show up every day, like Nora reminded us, a little bit every day is what's going to unravel this ugly ass sweater so that we can use this wool for something we all need, which is weaving a basket of love for all of humanity. So we're going to continue to pull the thread. Do we have any questions in the queue that want to be asked to the space as we're kind of wrapping it up in here?
Yeah, there's a few that we can bring.
Yeah, let's bring it out.
The first question was, do we have any more campaigns coming up? So Daniela, if you want to just chat a little bit about what we've got coming up in the future. We've already mentioned our Art for Palestine collection, but I don't know if you want to give a little bit more, time to that.
Yeah, of course. So our small team has been working on a lot, and we've been doing an amazing job at that. But there have been an incredible amount of donations that have come in by artists just looking to do something with their talents, with their artwork. So next Friday, actually, July 19th, we're going to be in a studio called Neighbor Studio in Jersey City, and we're just going to be showcasing all of this artwork that we will be uploading this week. Just throughout the week, we have maybe, I would say, about 25 pieces that have been inventoried and not uploaded onto our site. So I definitely recommend that you guys check it out. Check out the artists who have put so much love and time and effort into the work that they're donating to us and to our Palestinian families. Aside from the event next week, we have a lot in the works, but we don't have some dates locked down. So I would definitely subscribe and stay tuned for more dates, more updates, and just more energy.
Yeah. ArtForPalestineCampaign.com. You could just click it over here in the chat. Make sure you include your email if you're donating, or just include your email if you can't donate money, to stay in solidarity with this movement. And those of you who are here from Liberation Mystery School, thank you so much. This is the organization where we're laterally partnering with our online mystery school to bring more action into our daily lives online and in our locals. So just remember, like, we just start somewhere. Remember, it's like if you want to get in shape or if you want to develop any sort of practice, liberation is a practice. And it is ourselves and it's our collective. So it's what in my life am I still enslaved to? What in my own self am I paying homage to that is no longer serving me or my community? And that's really how the movement continues. It is in these groups. It's also in your personal, whether you call it spiritual, self-development, self-awareness. They're inherently connected. You learning how to live your own best life for yourself will help reflect that on the planet. And us starting to demand of our world leaders that every human being have access to live their own best life will also reflect on alleviating our anxiety, trauma, and depression. We are all connected. So it's not working only on personal liberation and not only working on collective liberation. It's the weaving of both. So we will be in touch with you all about upcoming dates online events and in person. And let's keep building together. Like, may this be the beginning of something radically beautiful that helps set the shift that's needed. And we need mycelial networks. We need these conversations, Friday night, date night with liberation. Like, we need this as much as we can. So encouraging you to step up in your leadership in your locales and in your own personal life as well. How are you leading liberation in your personal life? How are you leading liberation with your food? How are you leading liberation in your interpersonal relationships? How are you leading liberation with your sexuality, with your relationship, with how you buy things online? How are you leading liberation in the conversations with the rich friends who don't want to have this conversation? How are you leading liberation in your own life? And then also in the collective. So just really grateful to feel all of you. Thank you for the piece in the chats. And Raven, just like hands up to you for the energy that you bring and the love that you bring and the heart that you are. And Mary, just like painting in the background right now, this beautiful watermelon, like juicy, juicy. May we meet in person to have an amazing potluck that includes many rounds of watermelons that we could feed each other. I would love to feed you that watermelon, Mary. That would be so nice, with consent, obviously.
No, I just wanted to mention too, something that's kind of a microcosm of everything we're talking about today about coming together as a collective is basically how Daniela and I met, and this all started. Is that I had met, Rahaf, who we mentioned today, as one of the 6 families back in March. And I basically talked to every single person I knew and every single network I was a part of, and I was like, can you please donate to this GoFundMe? It would mean the world. And by the end of March, I kind of ran out of people and ran out of ideas. And so Daniela and I were both in a group that was it's an Instagram GoFundMe support group. It's for people who are trying to get donations for these GoFundMes. And we were like, what can we do together? Because us just like promoting or providing, trying to provide mutual aid for these individual families, it's not the answer. And so this is how this sort of communal event came up is, can we get artists, can we get speakers, can we get activists, and can we get, with the Art for Palestine collection, can we get artists to send us their artwork, and then all the proceeds will go to these families? Can we bring everyone in so that, we're more focused, but also have a much larger reach? And so, yeah, it's been a really special thing to realize this in July when this started in some ways back in March.
The way that synchronicity brings us together when we are following our heart and the vision that has been instilled in us since before birth is nothing short of magical. And I just want to thank you both for following that call, finding each other, and then calling in the rest of us. Y'all, I'm here because I responded to an Instagram post. So just know that it all makes a difference. Like, one Instagram post reaches the right person, who then brings in her best friend, who then brings in and then we all expand like that. It is magic. It's beautiful.
Relationships too. What Rand said, this is all about relationships. We're not here because we're getting paid. We're not here because we're here because we relate to each other. Thank you, Rand, for bringing that forward. The basis of true liberation is relationships, our intimacy with each other.
Yes.
Yep. The most healing and beautiful experiences that I've had in these most fucked up months of anybody's life is when I meet people. Again, even like I said, my wife hosted a fundraiser here in this fuck ass town in the middle of nowhere that we love because it's beautiful because of nature. But there was like 200 people that showed up, like little families, like people we've never met. This one guy, he's like a older white gentleman with like a beard. He looks real country. And I'm intrigued, I like when I go to things, I talk to people, and like I love people. Like, it is my favorite thing about this world is people. Because everybody has a unique story. Nobody has lived the same exact thing on this world in every moment. Like, it's just not possible. So I love that. I love that everybody has something that I can learn from just by talking to them. That's how I learn. I don't read books. I'm trying to get into it, but my favorite way to learn is from people. Anyway, so he introduces himself and he goes, what was his name? I'll say his name was Danny. He goes, Danny, he, him. And I'm looking around the table and like it's his cute little family. Like, he's got these 2 little trans kids, and like his wife is wearing a shirt that says something about pronouns or support my trans kids or something like that, and like that's who we're attracting, that's so beautiful. Like, and like they want us to be divided by race, they want us to be divided by gender, they want us to be divided by sexuality, and we all reject that. It's not to say there isn't unlearning to do around racism, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that, like, in order to undo all this, we just have to build together. It's that simple. I have friends who are farmers. They're part of the Black Skills, and they're queer and trans farmers all over these hills. And some of you might even know some people who work these farms. And a lot of these farms, one of them delivers food to the Black Trans Liberation Kitchen, which, by the way, if anyone's in New York, that's every Wednesday night. It's a beautiful space run by beautiful, beautiful people. Noor and I went. It was incredible. But there's farms out here that deliver food to the Bronx and to initiatives like that. So we're also working on food sustainability and water sustainability in a mutual aid sort of way. I was joking with my friend about how we need to start building a bunker and have all these cans. And they were like, no, just farm. Just we build farms. And they work with local farmers, and their mission is to communize them without their knowledge, because they want the same thing too. And sometimes all it takes is talking to somebody and be like, hey, don't you hate this shit? Don't you hate that you don't have any money right now? Like, isn't that terrible? Like, doesn't it suck that you're in massive debt and like these corporations want to crop your land to shit because that's what they do. They use extractive methods. So yeah, just speak in their language. And I'm not saying everyone should do that work. I understand, it's not up to people who aren't white to do that kind of work. But I think that also, like, our white allies need to be on the same page. Like, hey, if you're in those areas, we need you. We need you to do the outreach. We need you to. There's a little shop here called Bushel Collective, and they have free Palestine posters all over the place. And they host book clubs, and they're white. And like, yeah, do that shit. Just make sure you're collaborating with Palestinians and make sure you're paying them. There's ethical ways to do these things. So use your privilege, use your power, use your resources. If you don't think you have them, you do. I don't have many things. I have things, alhamdulillah. But I think like we can all give something. So just give what you can, and if that's your service, if that's your art, if that's a space you have, if it's your uncle's shop and he's a little screwy in the head, just get him on the right page and use your family influence, use your love influence. Again, back to relationships. I had a coming out experience with my mom, and it was a journey, and it still is every day. But at the end of the day, we both realized that despite our differences, we wanted to be in each other's lives. And I hope that you can use your love power in those ways, even on the people you think would never meet you where you're at. You'd be surprised.
Wow. That is so powerful. Thank you for emphasizing that we have it within each of us to make those connections in whatever form that we're moved to. And I know that we're all feeling so inspired right now. And there's been so many like quotable quotes and like important invitations to act. And I want to just remind you that like whatever you do for you is perfect. And we can always learn and grow together. So maybe tonight when you're journaling or maybe in a social media post, you can share with yourself like what you're really called to explore from this conversation, what part of your own personal or collective liberation and or both, right, together, do you want to dive in on? And thank you guys each for being such beacons of unique inspiration for that.
Sharing the light. Yeah. Echoing what Raven said, whatever you do in the name of liberation, yes. And I will invite you in a way that my yoga instructor likes to say, sweet Daniela, and just a little bit more. Just stretch it to the point where you're not going to hurt yourself, but you're stretching in a way where you're actually not just building on what you already have and know, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. Liberation, when we've been in a system that has held us enslaved relation to the global south and to places on the planet where extracting natural resources is the norm. For those of us who've been in a privileged position, and I'm speaking not only as a white presenting woman from Southern California, but also of someone of academic privilege, what it takes from us with privilege is to get a little bit, and sometimes a lot of it, uncomfortable, a little sweaty in that yoga class of liberation. If I do the same stretch in the same way every day and I stay comfortable, I'm not going to improve in my yoga practice. It is the same in liberation. So don't break yourself. Don't do a position that's going to cause you or others harm. But to be honest, this is where that spiritual or that knowing of self is so important. Only you can know that edge of like, okay, where can I actually stretch more? Could I give more financially? Could I show up? Could I organize something at my place? Like Rand said, could I speak to that family member that does have a resource that I could use for the community to speak about Palestine and liberation? Do I need to deconstruct my own ideas of oppression around trans and queer identity? Do I need to be able to make relations with people? Look at your friend group. Who do you associate with? So just an invitation to, yes, let's congratulate ourselves for being here and let's stay in the stretch, my friends, especially for those of us who can acknowledge that we have privilege, born into it, have practiced privilege. The best thing we can do with our privilege is build bridges into liberation.
Amen to that.
Stretch together, sacred stretching.
Yeah. Loving the sip of water invitation as well to help to process and digest the stretch.
So I wanted to mention, if you don't mind, we've got a few questions. If people are still here, I wanted to get to them. I think they're mostly for Alyssa. So if you don't mind, Alyssa, the first question from Yusuf is, from what you have seen, what is the typical journey looking like so far for those who have evacuated?
That's a great question. It is an uphill battle. For a lot of the folks that have already been evacuated, it can suck. As previously mentioned, if there are any health issues that people are facing and dealing with, medical care is extremely difficult and expensive for them to access reliable and consistent medical care. There are a ton of grassroots efforts and nonprofits on the ground right now whose sole purpose is to go and argue with hospitals and healthcare providers on the crazy prices they're charging for things like C-sections, for things like blood pressure medications and checkups, for things like diabetes, like insulin medications and checkups. They'll charge sometimes 10 times more than what they should normally be charging because they know these folks are vulnerable and in need. Landlords have been absolute assholes to folks that they know have just come over from Gaza. They have tried to confiscate people's passports. There are definitely a number of families that we helped cash aid that have had that happen. And because these folks are desperate, they comply with these ludicrous demands because they feel like they have no choice. They've got nowhere to go. They need shelter. And these landlords put them in some cases, some of the cash aid that I did back in January there were some places that could only be described as like roach infested hovels. And to take people's passports, to hold them under your thumb and charge them whatever you wanted just because you know that they have nowhere to go has just been it happens far more often than it should. This is not a story that is folks, few and far between. It's actually really, really common. Where just Egyptians can find a decent apartment for rent for couple £1,000. They're charging a lot of these Palestinian folks upwards of 10, 15,000, 20,000 pounds to the tune of like $300, $400, $500, $600. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money that they have a hard time accessing. So there's food insecurity, there's housing insecurity, there's medical care insecurity, there's education insecurity because children cannot be enrolled in public schools. They can be enrolled in private school, but that could cost anywhere from $100 to $200 a year to upwards of $1,000 a year. So they're out of immediate danger from shooting and airstrikes and just just murder and I get really frustrated and emotional. I think about what Egypt is or isn't doing for these Palestinians as well, not providing them with resources. There's no proper community resources and networks that they can tap into. There are more now because there's a lot of grassroots efforts and nonprofits going down and creating those community networks for them. But at the start and even the first 6 months, it was almost impossible to not only find community, but find help. Where can I get good medical care? Is this a good pediatrician that I can take my child to who's suffering from the effects of white phosphorus? Like these were a lot of the stories that we not only heard but saw firsthand. We visited a number of children in the hospital, and there were some children who were now deaf in one or both ears because of the nearby impact of airstrikes, that are struggling to get coverage for cochlear implants. And if they don't get that, then they go their whole life not being hearing. And it's an uphill battle would be an understatement. They are having a tough time post evac in some. And I, could talk about this for days. So if anybody ever wants to connect offline, I'm more than happy to rant about this, because I could go on for hours about the injustices a lot of these folks are facing.
Yeah, you've been so helpful, Alyssa, to help us. Daniela and I were complete novices when we came to, find our, families and meet them. And it's just been so eye-opening, literally you being boots on the ground and having all this experience. Like, it's amazing what you've been capable of doing. And so we have another question that's kind of similar. I'm sure that we have a bunch of people who are watching this that also are working with families. And so this question is, I think, from that perspective of, how do we practice self-accountability in our relationship with the family we're supposed to be supporting and fundraising for?
So I will answer that based on sort of my, I guess, definition of self-accountability. Because I feel like that might be perceived sort of differently depending on who's approaching it. But I guess if you're looking at self-accountability as constantly making a conscious effort to improve like your communication and the help that you're giving somebody, and also retaining aspects of like honesty and responsibility, your commitment to this family, discipline, and sort of separating your life from how you allow what you're going through to impact this family that you're trying to help, and reflection. So I think that's a really tough question to answer, and it's very individual, but I will say that I think being honest with yourself while you're engaging with a family that you're trying to support about why you're doing this, what your motives are, what you expect to come out of this, what you expect to gain from it. And gain can mean anything, right? It could mean just a sense of self-fulfillment, or just feeling like you helped somebody because you have the privilege to do so. Being honest with yourself at the end of every day that you're interacting with these families. Why am I doing this? What am I hoping to get out of it? What am I hoping to give them or provide for them? I think is super important. Something I've seen not a lot of, I will say this, but I've seen a little bit of this, is folks end up with this sort of savior complex that I think it's easy to fall into, and it's super important to avoid, because I said this, a couple hours ago, but the only thing separating us from them is the land we were born on. This could very well be us. It could still very well be us. We have absolutely no idea what the world's going to look like, right? Or if we're looking at the end of these imperialist nations, we're looking at the end of capitalism, that could mean anything. The only thing separating us from them is the land we were born on. And I think that's so important to keep in mind when you find yourself getting frustrated when you're talking about how money should be allocated, or where resources should go, how money should be transferred, who should hold it. It's super easy to just act like you're kind of having, or feel like you're having, a normal conversation with somebody who's just on a level playing field. But these folks have been stripped of literally everything they've held near and dear. And I think keeping that in mind and staying really humble has been super important. And it's a constant reflection, right? Because folks are in the most desperate period of their lives. They will blow up your phone at all hours of the day. And realizing that that's coming from a place of, hi, we need to survive, and all hours of the day for us are any amount of time that we could be slaughtered, is different than, oh, it's 2 a.m. and I need my beauty sleep. No, it's 2 a.m. and it's 6 or 9 a.m. there and they're being bombed, right? The airstrikes just started. Or it's 8 p.m. here and I'm winding down for dinner. It's 2 a.m. there and people are breaking into shelters and shooting people up for no reason and kidnapping people for no reason. Like, time exists really differently. And I think that's also really important to keep in mind. It's also really important, though, to take care of yourself, because you can't bring that level of patience and understanding to every conversation every day if you're wildly burnt out. And if this is all you're doing every minute of every day, there's going to come a time where that fuse is just lit and you're going to snap, and you cannot afford to do that when you're helping really, really vulnerable folks. So, like, take care of yourself. Take a minute to breathe. Go outside. Look up at the sky that's clear. That, Ren said this earlier. We have the luxury of being able to look up at a clear sky when other people don't, because they're literally dying and all they see is smoke. Like, take some advantage of that. breathe in that fresh air, listen to music, talk to your friends, hug your moms, right? Like, make sure to take care of yourselves while you're fighting, because otherwise you won't be able to take care of these families in an adequate way. And also
They don't
just
know all of that.
growing, right? Learn from everybody, talk to everybody, and also make sure to keep amplifying Palestinian voices. Because right now this is about them. And eventually, to I think it was Raven or Brianna's earlier point, eventually when Palestine is free, it'll be about everyone else's liberation. But like amplify those voices too.
Amen. Amen. All of that.
Inshallah.
Y'all, we are at our time for the evening. It has been an absolute delight, a treasure, a gift, and a blessing to gather with all of you for the Art for Palestine community that we are forming together. Yes, community, go family, go. I'm so proud of all of us. So grateful. Know that we've seen every single one of your comments. We felt every little heart. We watch your little participant number go up and down, and we are sending you our biggest hugs, warmest hugs of solidarity, sweet, tender kisses to soothe your grieving souls, and just so much oomph, so much spark, so much fire for this journey. We're here in it. So Art for Palestine campaign is going to be the main handle we meet, the main website where we take action on, and the email list that you can stay on to hear from all of us. Bree, anything you want to add to complete us, pray us on out?
Just a deep belly breath, and we cannot own this planet. She is our mother, and we all belong to her. All beings are one being, and in love and liberation, I just want to say free Palestine, free us all from the war machine, and may we return to our true nature, which is love. That's what we are. Just love.
Love you all, family. We'll see you.
Thank you
guys so much. Point out the Gen Z is coming through because the hearts look different.
They do like some, I don't know.
They do, whatever Ren is doing.
Noor teaches me everything.
What is this?
Noor teaches me everything I know. Look at that. Boots.
We're all learning today. We're all learning. Thank you.
I'm Ren's Gen Z contact.
Yeah, I got a Gen Z hookup. If anybody needs a consultation. Thank you all.
Love you.
So
See you soon. Yes, please, more. Thank you.